The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy and fate. But what happens when something arrives that the Force cannot touch? A warrior forged in another universe entirely, carrying technology that defies the ancient balance between light and dark. The answer came as a rupture in space itself. High above the industrial world of Balmorra, reality tore open. Not a hyperspace emergence, those left signatures, predictable patterns that every sensor array in the sector would immediately recognize. This was something else entirely. A wound in the fabric of space that screamed with energies unknown to Imperial scientists and rebel senses alike. For 3 seconds, the rift burned like a newborn star, visible from the planet's surface. Then it collapsed, spitting out a single object that tumbled through the void. A figure in green armor, trailing sparks and venting atmosphere. Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 had survived the destruction of Installation 04, the parasitic horror of the Flood, and countless battles against the Covenant. He had not expected to survive this. The slipspace drive malfunction had been catastrophic. One moment, his Pelican dropship had been making the jump to rendezvous with UNSC Infinity. The next, alarms shrieked as reality itself seemed to reject their presence. The pilot had barely managed to scream a warning before the rupture consumed them. Chief remembered the sensation of being pulled apart at the molecular level, of existing in multiple places simultaneously, of colors that had no name and sounds that existed outside conventional physics. Then darkness. Now consciousness returned with the insistent blare of his armor's emergency alerts. His HUD flickered, displaying damage reports in angry red text. Shield integrity, 23%. Oxygen, 4 minutes remaining. Cortana, offline. That last one hit harder than expected. The AI's absence left a hollow space in his tactical awareness, a silence where her constant analysis and commentary should have been. Chief stabilized his tumbling descent with carefully timed thruster bursts, his augmented reflexes compensating for the damaged maneuvering system. Below him, a planet rotated into view, definitely not Earth, not Reach, not any UNSC colony he recognized. The continents were wrong, the atmospheric composition readings stranger still. His armor's senses struggled to catalog what they were seeing, chemistry that didn't quite match known elements, energy signatures that made no sense according to human physics. A ship appeared on his motion tracker. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of a UNSC frigate, wedge-shaped and bristling with weapons. The hull was a uniform gray, marked with symbols his armor's database couldn't translate. As Chief watched, the vessel altered course, engines flaring as it moved to intercept his trajectory. Smaller craft began launching from hangar bays along its flanks, fighters, judging by their size and acceleration profiles, but the design was unlike anything in UNSC or Covenant records. They looked almost ceremonial, these fighters, with their ball-shaped cockpits and flat, angular wings. But the weapons they carried were real enough. Chief's threat detector lit up as targeting sensors locked onto him. His comms crackled with static, then resolved into voices, human voices, speaking a language that was almost but not quite English. His armor's translation protocols struggled, catching perhaps one word in 3. Orders. Interrogatives. The universal tone of military communication demanding identification. Chief had no way to respond, no shared protocols, no diplomatic channels. He was a soldier falling through alien space above an unknown world, and that massive warship was treating him exactly as UNSC vessels would treat an unidentified contact in controlled space, as a potential threat. The fighters opened fire. Blue energy bolts, not plasma, his senses insisted, something else entirely, streaked past him. Chief fired his thrusters again, evading with the precision that had kept him alive through hundreds of combat drops. His hand instinctively reached for his MA-5D assault rifle, still mag-locked to his armor's back, but he didn't draw it. 700 rounds of 7.62mm ammunition wasn't going to stop a capital ship, and these fighters weren't close enough for effective engagement anyway. One of the energy bolts clipped his left pauldron. His shields flared, absorbing the impact, but Chief's eyes narrowed as the readout updated, shields at 19%. These weapons hit harder than he'd expected, or his shields were less effective against this particular energy type. Either way, he couldn't take many more hits. The planet's atmosphere was getting closer. Chief made a tactical decision, the only one that made sense given his situation. He angled his thrusters for a steep descent, pushing past the fighter screen toward re-entry. The massive ship couldn't follow him down without committing to an atmospheric approach, and the fighters would have to either break off or risk getting too deep in the gravity well. It was a gamble, but Chief had survived longer odds. The fighters pursued, their pilots apparently unconcerned about atmospheric combat. More energy bolts lanced through space around him. Chief's shields dropped to 12%, then 7%. His armor began heating as he hit the upper atmosphere, and for a moment he experienced the unique terror of wondering if he'd survived slipspace rupture only to burn up on re-entry. Then his shields regenerated, slowly, too slowly, but they climbed to 15%. The MJOLNIR armor's power plant was still functioning, still drawing from whatever exotic reactor technology powered Spartan equipment. Small mercy. The industrial world below resolved into detail. Vast factory complexes, towering smokestacks, rivers choked with runoff. A polluted, militarized world that reminded Chief uncomfortably of certain outer colony planets during their rush industrialization phases. His armor's altimeter spun down rapidly, 30,000 meters. 20,000. The fighters were still behind him, still firing, but the atmospheric turbulence was making their shots less accurate. At 10,000 meters, Chief deployed his armor's emergency chute, a last resort system designed for exactly this scenario. The deceleration was brutal, even with his augmented skeleton and the armor's inertial dampeners. He watched his altitude drop at a more controlled pace, 5,000 meters, 3,000, 1,000. The fighters broke off, screaming past him and pulling up in tight formations. They weren't giving up. Chief's tactical instinct told him they were radioing ground forces, vectoring them toward his landing zone. He had perhaps 5 minutes before whatever military controlled this world descended on his position. At 200 meters, Chief cut the chute and let himself drop. He hit the ground in a crouch, armor absorbing the impact with a wound that cracked the ferrocrete beneath his boots. He was in an industrial district, warehouses and processing plants stretching in every direction, the air thick with smoke and the smell of burning metal. Workers in dull gray uniforms scattered at his appearance, their faces registering shock and fear. Chief stood slowly, taking in his surroundings. The architecture was functional but oppressive, everything built to intimidate and control. Security cameras swiveled toward him from every corner. In the distance, sirens began to wail. His motion tracker lit up. Multiple contacts, approaching fast from 3 directions. Ground vehicles by their speed and formation. Chief checked his weapons, MA-5D assault rifle, 96 rounds remaining in the magazine. M6H Magnum pistol, 32 rounds across 4 magazines. 2 fragmentation grenades. It wouldn't last long in sustained combat. The first vehicle rounded a corner, a boxy, white-armored transport hovering on repulsor technology. Soldiers in white plastic armor dismounted, carrying those same energy rifles he'd seen on the fighters. They moved with military precision, establishing a perimeter, weapons trained on his position. One of them, marked with a distinctive orange pauldron, stepped forward and barked something in that almost English language. An order to surrender, most likely. The translation software was catching more words now. Identify, armor, surrender. Emperor, emperor. That word Chief understood perfectly. It told him almost everything he needed to know about where he'd landed. More transports arrived, disgorging more white-armored soldiers. Chief counted 36 hostiles, with more likely en route. His shields were at 40% and climbing, but he was outnumbered, low on ammunition, and had no idea what kind of military force he was facing. The soldier with the orange pauldron raised his weapon, the barrel beginning to glow with gathering energy. Chief's hand moved to his rifle. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. This was going to be a very long day. The standoff lasted exactly 4 seconds. Chief's combat instinct, honed through decades of warfare, read the shift in the orange pauldron soldier's body language, the subtle tightening of grip, the micro-adjustment of aim. The soldier was going to fire. Not a warning shot, a kill shot. Chief moved first. His augmented reflexes, operating at speeds that made normal human reaction times look sluggish, carried him sideways as the blue energy bolt seared through the space where he'd been standing. The ferrocrete exploded, superheated fragments spraying outward. Chief's MA-5D came up smoothly, and he fired a 3-round burst into the soldier's chest. The 7.62mm rounds struck with kinetic force that should have dropped an elite. Instead, they sparked off the white armor, staggering the soldier backward but not penetrating. Chief's tactical assessment updated instantly. Enemy armor was more resistant than it looked. Center mass shots wouldn't be effective. He needed headshots or joint targeting. The other soldiers opened fire. 35 energy weapons discharged simultaneously, filling the air with crackling blue bolts. Chief's shields flared brilliant blue-white as they absorbed the impacts, and his HUD screamed warnings, shield integrity dropping rapidly, 60%, 45%, 30%. These weapons were devastating against his shields, far more effective than Covenant plasma pistols. He couldn't tank this kind of firepower. He ran, not retreat. Spartans didn't retreat. Tactical repositioning to more advantageous terrain. Chief sprinted toward the nearest warehouse, his armor's enhanced servos pushing him to speeds that made him a blur to the watching soldiers. Energy bolts chased him, one clipping his shoulder guard and dropping his shields to 15%. He crashed through the warehouse's loading door, the metal barrier crumpling like paper under his momentum. Inside, Chief found himself in a vast storage facility filled with towering shelves of industrial equipment. He moved deeper into the maze of containers and machinery, letting his shields regenerate while his tactical mind worked the problem. 36 hostiles, possibly more en route. Unknown military force with superior numbers and energy weapons effective against his shields. Limited ammunition. No support. No extraction. His motion tracker showed the soldiers entering the warehouse, spreading out in practiced search patterns. Professional. Well-trained. Chief had fought enough campaigns to recognize quality troops when he saw them. A voice echoed through the warehouse, amplified, probably through external speakers on one of the soldiers' helmets. More of that almost English language, but Chief's armor was translating better now. Surrender, no harm, identification, authority of the Galactic Empire. Galactic Empire. The phrase crystallized Chief's understanding. He'd fallen into a civilization that spanned multiple worlds, ruled by a centralized imperial authority, with professional military forces and standardized equipment. This wasn't a colony world or an independent system. This was controlled space, and he was an unidentified intruder. His shields hit 78%. Good enough. Chief scaled a shelving unit with practiced ease, his armor's strength augmentation allowing him to climb the metal framework like a ladder. From his elevated position, he had clear sightlines on the search pattern below. The white-armored soldiers moved in fire teams of 4, covering each other, checking corners and clearance zones with professional competence. But they weren't expecting someone with his capabilities. Chief waited until one fire team passed below his position, then dropped behind them in perfect silence. His hand shot out, catching the rearmost soldier's helmet and wrenching sideways with enough force to snap the locking mechanism. The helmet came free, and Chief's other hand delivered a precise strike to the exposed neck, controlled force, enough to render unconscious but not kill. The soldier dropped without a sound. Chief caught the falling energy rifle before it could clatter against the ferrocrete floor. He examined it quickly. Simple design, trigger mechanism, power cell in the grip, barrel that vented heat. Functional. Practical. The other 3 soldiers in the fire team spun around, weapons rising, but Chief was already moving. He fired the captured rifle. The weapon kicked differently than UNSC equipment, the energy discharge producing a distinctive snap-hiss sound, and the bolt caught the second soldier in the chest plate. The armor held, but the kinetic impact knocked the soldier backward into a shelving unit. Chief closed the distance before the others could track him. His armored fist drove into the third soldier's helmet with enough force to crack the plastoid material and send the trooper sprawling. The fourth managed to get a shot off. The bolt skimmed Chief's shoulder, dropping his shields to 45%, before Chief swept the soldier's legs and delivered a knockout blow. 4 down, 32 to go. The other fire teams converged on his position, alerted by the weapon's fire. Chief moved through the warehouse like a ghost, using the terrain to his advantage. He'd fought in worse conditions, the tight corridors of Covenant cruisers, the chaos of flood-infested installations. This was almost familiar. He ambushed another fire team, dropping 3 before they could react and leaving the 4th stunned and disarmed. Picked up 2 more energy rifles, tested their weight and balance. Acceptable substitutes for his MA5D, though he kept the assault rifle as backup. Never discard a functional weapon. The soldiers adapted. They stopped moving in small teams and consolidated into larger groups, sacrificing search coverage for concentrated firepower. Smart. Chief adapted too, using hit-and-run tactics, firing from unexpected angles and disappearing before they could bring their numbers to bear. 10 minutes into the engagement, Chief had disabled or knocked unconscious 14 soldiers without taking a single casualty. The remaining troops were getting frustrated. He could hear it in their increasingly frantic communications, in the way they fired at shadows and empty corridors. Then the warehouse's main entrance exploded inward. Not breached, exploded. The massive loading door disintegrated in a shower of molten metal, and through the smoke walked something that made Chief's tactical assessment shift into high alert. The figure was humanoid but massive, easily 7 feet tall, clad in black armor that seemed to absorb light. A cape flowed behind the figure, and a helmet covered the face, all black, with a triangular breathing apparatus that produced a distinctive mechanical rasp with each breath. In the figure's hand, a cylinder hung from the belt, innocuous until he raised it and thumbed an activation stud. A blade of pure red energy ignited with a snap hiss, casting crimson light across the warehouse floor. Chief had fought energy sword-wielding elites before. He understood the threat, but something about this weapon felt different, not just dangerous, but wrong on a fundamental level. His instincts, the same ones that had warned him about the flood before he'd even encountered them, were screaming danger. The figure spoke, and even through the translation lag, Chief heard the cold authority, "I am Lord Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. You will surrender, or you will be destroyed." The remaining soldiers immediately moved aside, giving the dark figure clear approach. Chief noticed their body language, not just respect, but fear. Whatever this, Lord Vader, was, his own troops were terrified of him. Chief didn't respond. Words wouldn't help here. Instead, he raised the captured energy rifle and fired. The bolt crossed the distance in a fraction of a second, and Vader raised his free hand almost casually. The energy bolt stopped in midair, frozen 3 feet from the dark figure's palm. It hung there, crackling and spitting sparks, held by nothing Chief could see or detect. Then Vader closed his fist, and the bolt dissipated into nothing. Chief's HUD tried to analyze what he'd just witnessed and failed. No gravity manipulation detected, no energy field, no hard light construct. The bolt had simply stopped. As if will alone had arrested its flight. Vader began walking forward, his pace measured, that red blade humming with each step. Impressive armor, impressive skills, but you are alone, nameless warrior. You cannot win. Chief dropped the energy rifle and drew his MA5D. If exotic physics were in play, he'd try conventional ballistics. He fired a controlled burst, 15 rounds, aimed at center mass. Vader's lightsaber moved in a blur, impossibly fast. Each bullet struck that red blade and disintegrated, vaporized instantly by whatever energy the weapon produced. Vader didn't even slow his approach. Chief switched targets, firing at the warehouse's support structure. The rounds punched through metal supports, causing a shelving unit to collapse toward Vader. Tons of industrial equipment and containers crashed down. And stopped, held suspended in midair by that same invisible force. Vader gestured, and the debris flew sideways, clearing his path. You are skilled, but you do not understand the power of the Force. You cannot comprehend what stands before you. Force. That word again, capitalized in a way that suggested significance beyond the obvious. Chief filed it away for analysis later, if there was a later. Right now, his tactical situation had deteriorated to critical. This, Vader, entity possessed abilities that violated everything Chief understood about physics, could stop bullets and energy weapons with apparent ease, and wielded a blade that could cut through anything. Standard engagement protocols were inadequate. Chief's hand moved to his belt, fingers closing around one of his 2 remaining fragmentation grenades. Not to throw at Vader, the dark figure would probably stop it in midair. But grenades were useful for more than direct attacks. Vader raised his hand, palm toward Chief. Surrender, or... Chief threw the grenade at the ceiling. The explosive detonated against a massive coolant pipe, rupturing it instantly. Superheated industrial fluid sprayed across the warehouse in a scalding wave, filling the air with steam and obscuring all sightlines. In the chaos, Chief ran. Not away from Vader, that would be predictable. Instead, Chief ran directly toward where the remaining soldiers had taken position, counting on the steam cover and their fear of hitting the Dark Commander. He burst through their line, scattering troopers, and crashed through a side door into the industrial district beyond. Alarms wailed across the entire sector now. More of those hovering transports were converging, and overhead Chief could hear the scream of atmospheric fighters. His shields were at 62%, his ammunition critically low, and he'd just made an enemy of whatever Lord Vader was. But he'd learned valuable intelligence. This galactic empire had energy weapons, advanced technology, and at least one individual with abilities that transcended normal physics. They were organized, professional, and they would not stop hunting him. Chief needed allies. He needed information. He needed a way off this world. His motion tracker lit up with new contacts, but these weren't soldiers. The signatures were irregular, unarmored, moving with the practiced caution of people who knew how to avoid official attention. Chief caught a glimpse of them as he rounded a corner, humanoid figures in mismatched armor, carrying what looked like modified versions of those energy rifles. Moving through the industrial shadows with purpose. One of them spotted Chief and froze. A female humanoid, blue-skinned with distinctive head tails, her weapon halfway to raised position. They stared at each other for 2 seconds, Chief with his distinctive green armor and alien appearance, the blue woman with her eyes widening in recognition of something unusual. She lowered her weapon slowly and spoke in yet another language, but this one his armor's translation protocols caught more clearly. You're not Imperial. And that armor. I've never seen tech like that. Her eyes narrowed. You're running from Vader. Smart. Come with us if you want to live. Behind Chief, the sound of Vader's mechanical breathing echoed through the industrial district, growing closer. Chief had 3 seconds to make a tactical decision. Behind him, Vader's measured footsteps and mechanical breathing drew closer, accompanied by the coordinated movements of at least 40 Imperial soldiers. Ahead, a group of unknowns offering extraction, their body language suggesting they were practiced at evading Imperial attention. Unknown variables, uncertain loyalties, potential trap. But they weren't actively shooting at him, which put him ahead of everyone else he'd encountered in this galaxy. Chief nodded once, a sharp, economical gesture, and followed. The blue-skinned woman moved immediately, gesturing to her team. They scattered into the industrial labyrinth with practiced efficiency, and Chief noted the tactical awareness. They moved in a dispersed pattern, avoided predictable routes, and used the terrain to break line of sight. Not military, but experienced in hostile operations. His motion tracker showed Imperial forces spreading out in a search grid, professional and thorough. Vader's signature, Chief had mentally tagged the dark figure's distinctive energy readings, remained at the center, moving with unhurried confidence. As if the Dark Lord knew his prey couldn't escape, only delay the inevitable. The blue woman led Chief through a maintenance access tunnel, barely wide enough for his armored bulk. She moved with the fluid grace of someone comfortable in tight spaces, occasionally glancing back to verify he was keeping pace. Her head tails, Leku, Chief's database supplied after finally accessing some linguistic context, twitched with what might have been nervousness. They emerged in a sub-level transit station, abandoned judging by the rust on the rails and the graffiti covering the walls. The rest of the team was already there, 7 individuals in total, various species Chief didn't recognize. One was tall and fur-covered with a canine face, another appeared to be human but with cybernetic implants covering half his skull, a third was barely 4 feet tall with large, bat-like ears. The blue woman turned to face Chief fully. I'm Hira Syndulla. These are my people. She didn't introduce the others individually, Chief noted. Operational security, real names only when trust was established. We're part of a network that opposes the Empire. We saw your arrival, saw you take on 3 dozen stormtroopers and walk away. That kind of capability interests us. Stormtroopers, Chief repeated, filing away the term. The white armored soldiers. The Emperor's enforcers. They garrison every imperial world, enforce martial law, and put down any resistance. Hera's expression hardened. You're not from any system I recognize, and that armor isn't any tech I've seen in imperial or even rebel databases. Who are you? Chief considered his response. UNSC First Contact Protocols emphasized minimal information disclosure until proper diplomatic channels could be established. But those protocols assumed UNSC command structure was accessible, that extraction was possible, that he represented an official military presence. None of those conditions applied. Master Chief Petty Officer John 117, he said finally. United Nations Space Command. My vessel experienced a critical malfunction during faster-than-light travel. I don't know how I arrived in your space, or where I am relative to my operational area. The tall, fur-covered alien, the cybernetic human had called him Zeb during their extraction, let out a low whistle. Another dimension, alternate universe, or just from so far out in the unknown regions that we've never heard of this, United Nations. Unknown, Chief admitted, the honest answer, and one that bothered him more than he'd acknowledge. He needed information, needed to understand this galaxy's technology and physics before he could even begin calculating a return vector to UNSC space. Hera studied him carefully. You fought Vader, directly, and you're still alive. That's unprecedented. Most people don't survive 10 seconds in his presence, let alone extract from active engagement. Vader, Chief said, the figure in black armor, with the energy blade, lightsaber, the short alien corrected, his voice high-pitched and nervous. Weapon of the Jedi and Sith. You're lucky he didn't cut you in half. Jedi, Sith. Chief filed the terms away. Vader demonstrated abilities that don't match known physics. Telekinesis, precognition, energy manipulation, the Force, Hera said, and there was something almost reverent in her tone despite her apparent opposition to the Empire. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, penetrates us, binds the galaxy together. Those sensitive to it can manipulate reality itself, move objects, sense thoughts, even see glimpses of the future. The Jedi were peacekeepers who served the Old Republic. The Sith. She paused. The Sith seek power through passion and domination. Vader is the Emperor's right hand, the most feared enforcer in the galaxy. Chief processed this information with the same analytical detachment he'd applied to learning about Covenant religion and flood infection vectors. Every galaxy, every conflict, had its unique variables. This one apparently included individuals who could manipulate what they called the Force, an energy field that allowed violation of conventional physics. It explained Vader's capabilities. It didn't make the Dark Lord any less dangerous. Your network, Chief said, steering the conversation toward immediate tactical concerns. You oppose the Empire. Organization, objectives, resources. Hera exchanged glances with her team. The cybernetic human, clearly the technical specialist, shook his head slightly. A warning, don't share too much too soon. We're part of something larger, Hera said carefully. A growing movement that believes the Empire's tyranny must end. We gather intelligence, run supplies, extract people the Empire wants to disappear. We're not soldiers, not like you clearly, but we do what we can. Rebellion, Chief said. The pattern was familiar. Authoritarian central government, scattered resistance cells, guerrilla operations and intelligence gathering. He'd studied Earth's history extensively during training, World War II, the Cold War, various colonial insurgencies. The tactical frameworks were universal. Some call it that, Hera admitted. Though officially, we're just concerned citizens. The Empire doesn't take kindly to organized resistance. Public executions are common. Entire planets have been blockaded or subjected to orbital bombardment for harboring rebels. Chief's expression didn't change behind his visor, but he noted the escalation. Orbital bombardment of civilian populations. The Empire was willing to employ total war doctrine against its own citizens. Brutal, but unfortunately effective for suppressing resistance. Why extract me? Chief asked. The tactical question that mattered. I'm unknown, unvetted, possibly an Imperial agent using sophisticated infiltration tactics. Zeb laughed. A barking sound. If you're an Imperial agent, they've gotten a lot better at deep cover. You just fought your way through 3 dozen stormtroopers and forced Vader himself to personally intervene. The Empire doesn't need that kind of theater. Plus, the cybernetic human added, his voice synthesized and mechanical, your technology is fascinating. That armor's power signature doesn't match anything in Imperial databases. I've been scanning you since we made contact. Whatever civilization built it has energy shielding more sophisticated than anything outside of capital ship reactors. The rebellion could use that kind of innovation. There it was, the real reason. They wanted his technology. Chief had encountered this before, civilians and military officials alike, fascinated by MJOLNIR armor, by Spartan augmentations, by the strategic advantages that Spartan IIs represented. Some wanted to replicate it. Some wanted to weaponize it. Some just wanted to understand it. My armor isn't replicable, Chief said flatly. The technology requires industrial infrastructure, scientific expertise, and resources that probably don't exist in this galaxy. Even if they did, I'm not authorized to share UNSC military technology with foreign powers. Foreign powers, Hera repeated softly. You really are from somewhere else. Another galaxy, another dimension. Unknown, Chief said again. I need data, information on local space-time topology, faster than light travel mechanics, and any documented spatial anomalies. If I can understand the mechanism that brought me here, I might be able to calculate a return vector. The cybernetic human's eyes lit up, literally, his implants glowing slightly. Hyperspace data. You're talking about analyzing the slipspace rupture that brought you through. I'm canon, by the way. Forget operational security. If you're trying to map alternate dimensional transit, I want in on that research. Later, Hera said firmly. Right now, we need to get off Balmorra before the Empire locks down the entire sector. They're already establishing orbital blockades, and Vader won't stop until he's found you. Your arrival is going to be classified at the highest levels. Chief's tactical assessment agreed. Vader had demonstrated significant personal interest in capturing him alive. That suggested either the Dark Lord wanted to interrogate him about his technology, or, more concerning, Vader viewed him as a threat that required personal attention. Extraction options, Chief asked. We have a ship in the commercial spaceport, registered under false credentials. If we can reach it before Imperial security flags our departure, we can make the jump to hyperspace before they can interdict. Hera gestured to the tunnel system around them. These maintenance networks connect to the spaceport's lower levels. It's not pleasant, but it's unmonitored. Then we move now, Chief said. Simple. Direct. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Every minute they remained on this world increased the probability of capture or engagement with superior forces. The team didn't argue. They moved out immediately, Hera taking point with Zeb covering the rear. Chief positioned himself in the middle, optimal position for providing fire support in either direction if they encountered hostiles. They traveled through maintenance tunnels and abandoned sublevel passages for 30 minutes, occasionally hearing the distant sound of stormtrooper boots or the whine of patrol speeders on the streets above. Twice they had to hide while Imperial search teams passed within meters, and Chief noted that Hera's people were excellent at silent operations. The spaceport sublevel access emerged in a service corridor filled with coolant pipes and power conduits. Through a grated floor, Chief could see the spaceport's main hangar below, dozens of ships of varying sizes, from small personal craft to large cargo haulers. The design aesthetic was different from UNSC vessels, more organic curves, less geometric precision, but the fundamental purpose was identical. There, Hera pointed to a ship that made Chief pause. It was a light freighter, modified heavily with what looked like upgraded engines and additional weapons hardpoints. Battered, worn, but maintained with obvious care. That's the Ghost. Not much to look at, but she's got it where it counts. The small alien, Chopper, Hera had finally called him, let out a series of beeps and whistles that Chief's translation software rendered as highly skeptical commentary about their chances of successful departure. Optimistic as always, Zeb muttered. They descended to the hangar level using a service lift, emerging near the Ghost's boarding ramp. Chief's motion tracker showed scattered contacts throughout the hangar, mechanics, cargo handlers, other ship crews going about their business. Normal spaceport activity. Too normal. Chief's combat instinct screamed warning half a second before his HUD flagged the threat. 20 contacts materialized on his tracker, moving in coordinated patterns from multiple angles. Stormtroopers, emerging from positions they'd held in perfect silence, weapons already trained on the Ghost. They'd been waiting, and standing at the center of the trap, his black armor seeming to absorb the hangar's lights, stood Vader. That mechanical breathing echoed across the hangar bay, and the Dark Lord's voice carried absolute certainty. You are contained. Your ship is disabled. There is nowhere left to run. Hera's hand moved toward her blaster, but Chief touched her shoulder. A light contact, but enough to stop her movement. 40-7 odds, poor tactical position, enemy holding high ground with overlapping fields of fire. Drawing weapons now would just trigger a massacre. But Chief noticed something Vader apparently didn't. His armor's technical scanner had picked up a familiar energy signature. Not UNSC technology, but similar principles: active camouflage, powered armor enhancement, shield generators. From behind a cargo container, a new figure stepped into view. Armored head to toe in distinctive plating, different design from the stormtroopers, more personal, more crafted. The armor was painted in green and gray, weathered from use, and the helmet bore a distinctive T-shaped visor. At the figure's hip hung an array of weapons that would make any UNSC armory jealous. The figure's helmeted head turned toward Chief, then toward Vader, then back to Chief. A measuring look. Then the armored figure spoke, voice modulated through external speakers. 40,000 credits says this one's more interesting alive than dead. I'm claiming bounty rights. Vader's helmet turned toward the newcomer. You dare interfere, Mandalorian. I dare claim legitimate salvage, the Mandalorian replied calmly. This one's not Imperial, not Rebel, and not registered in any bounty database. Under Mandalorian code, that makes him unclaimed goods. You want him, you negotiate with me. The tension in the hangar reshade up to critical levels. Stormtroopers adjusting aim between Chief's group and the Mandalorian. Vader's hand moving toward his lightsaber. Hera and her team frozen in tactical paralysis. And Chief, calculating odds and variables, realized that this galaxy's complications had just multiplied exponentially. The hangar fell into tense silence, broken only by Vader's mechanical breathing and the subtle hum of 40 blaster rifles held at ready. Chief's tactical assessment ran through options at computer speed: 40 stormtroopers, distributed across elevated positions with overlapping fields of fire. Vader, demonstrating physics-defying abilities that made conventional engagement suicidal. One Mandalorian of unknown capability making a legal claim that had somehow frozen an Imperial Dark Lord's immediate response. And in the center of it all, Chief's team, outgunned, outmaneuvered, and out of options. Vader's helmet remained fixed on the Mandalorian. You test my patience, bounty hunter. This is an Imperial matter. Stand aside, or be destroyed. With respect, Lord Vader, the Mandalorian's modulated voice carried no fear, only professional courtesy. Mandalorian salvage rights predate the Empire by 3,000 years. They were honored by the Old Republic, recognized by the Separatists during the Clone Wars, and even your Emperor has confirmed their legal standing. This armored warrior bears no Imperial identification, carries no registration transponder, and appeared via unscheduled atmospheric entry. Under interstellar salvage law, he's unclaimed property. Chief bristled internally at being referred to as property, but remained silent. The Mandalorian was buying time with legal maneuvering, and Chief had learned long ago that sometimes the best tactical contribution was knowing when not to speak. I could simply take him, Vader said, and there was dark amusement in his synthesized voice. Your Mandalorian codes mean nothing against the power of the Force. You could, the Mandalorian agreed. But then you'd be in violation of treaties that keep the Mandalorian clans neutral in your conflict with the rebellion. Neutrality the Empire values, since it means Mandalorian mercenaries work for the highest bidder, often Imperial credits. Break our salvage rights, and you might find those mercenaries suddenly very interested in rebel employment contracts. A long pause. Chief watched Vader's body language, minimal, but present. The Dark Lord's hand had moved away from his lightsaber. A concession, however slight. State your terms, Vader said finally. 72 hours to process the salvage claim. Standard holding period. If the Empire can produce documentation proving this warrior is Imperial property, registered cargo, or wanted criminal, I'll transfer custody immediately. If not, the Mandalorian's helmet tilted slightly. Then we negotiate a bounty fee for information about where he came from and how he got that armor. Chief's respect for the Mandalorian's tactical thinking increased. The bounty hunter had just bought them 3 days and established a framework where the Empire would have to admit they had no information about him, useful intelligence in itself. Vader stood motionless for 10 seconds that stretched like hours. Then, 72 hours. But understand this, Mandalorian, if this warrior proves to be a rebel asset or a threat to Imperial security, the consequences will extend far beyond salvage disputes. Understood, Lord Vader. The Mandalorian executed a small bow, respect without subservience. Vader turned, his cape swirling dramatically. Withdraw, he commanded the stormtroopers. The white-armored soldiers obeyed immediately, maintaining weapons discipline as they retreated in organized ranks. Within 60 seconds, the hangar was clear of Imperial presence except for the distant observation posts. The moment the last stormtrooper disappeared, Hera hissed, "What just happened?" Mandalorian salvage law, canon said quietly. It's one of the few legal frameworks the Empire still respects, because breaking it would turn every Mandalorian clan in the galaxy against them. The too valuable as mercenaries and bounty hunters to alienate. The Mandalorian approached Chief's group, movements economical and professional. Up close, Chief could see the wear on the armor, carbon scoring from blaster fire, dents from kinetic impacts, scratches from close quarters combat. This was a warrior's equipment, maintained but actively used. You're either extremely lucky or extremely dangerous, the Mandalorian said, addressing Chief directly. I'm betting on dangerous. That armor's military grade, your tactical positioning during the standoff was textbook special operations, and you're carrying yourself like someone who's survived worse situations than this. Both assessments are accurate, Chief replied. The Mandalorian's helmet tilted in what might have been amusement. Honest. I like that. I'm Sabine Wren, formerly of Imperial Academy, currently freelance. Before you ask, yes, I'm Mandalorian. No. I don't automatically side with the Empire just because I know how to work their legal system. You're rebel, Chief stated. Not a question, her intervention on their behalf, her knowledge of Hera's operation, the way she'd positioned herself to give them an extraction window. All indicators. I'm Mandalorian, Sabine corrected. Which means I follow the creed and I choose my contracts carefully. Right now, my contract is keeping you alive long enough to figure out what you are and where you came from. That armor. Her voice held genuine professional interest. I've never seen power systems like that. The energy signature is completely alien. UNSC military technology, Chief said. Not available for replication or study. Figured as much. Still, you just became the most interesting person in this sector. Vader's personal attention, unknown armor capabilities, and you managed to disable 14 stormtroopers without killing any of them. That level of combat control is impressive. Chief hadn't thought anyone was tracking his engagement parameters that carefully. The Mandalorian was more observant than he'd credited. What now? Hera asked, her voice tight with tension. You bought us 72 hours, but Vader won't forget this. And the Empire will be watching every move we make. Now we get off-world before they decide salvage law isn't worth honoring, Sabine said. She gestured toward a different ship, smaller than the Ghost, sleeker, painted in distinctive Mandalorian colors. My ship, the Nightshade. Faster than your freighter, better shielded, and registered under clean credentials. We lift off as a legitimate salvage operation transporting claimed property. And go where? Kanan asked. Somewhere the Empire has limited presence and Mandalorian traditions are respected. Somewhere we can actually have a conversation without 40 blasters pointed at us. Sabine's helmet turned toward Chief. You want answers about this galaxy. You need data on hyperspace mechanics and spatial anomalies. I know someone who might help. But it'll require trust. Something I'm guessing you're not comfortable giving to people you just met. Chief considered. The tactical situation was clear. remain on Balmorra, and the Empire would find a legal pretext to void the salvage claim within hours. Accept extraction with this Mandalorian, and he'd be placing himself in her custody with no guarantee of her intentions. But Sabine had intervened when she could have simply let the Empire take him. She'd risked Vader's attention to buy them time. That suggested either she genuinely opposed the Empire, or she saw value in keeping Chief operational, possibly both. Where? Chief asked. Concordia, one of Mandalore's moons, neutral territory, training facilities for Mandalorian warriors, and far enough from Imperial core systems that Vader would need significant justification to follow. Plus, the clans there respect combat prowess. Your performance against those stormtroopers will earn you a hearing, at minimum. Hera looked torn. Chief, we could offer you sanctuary with the rebellion. We have safe houses, intelligence networks, which the Empire is constantly infiltrating and destroying, Sabine interrupted, not unkindly. Your rebellion is brave, Hera, but it's not secure. Not for someone this valuable. The Empire will deploy inquisitors, probe droids, and informant networks until they find him. Mandalorian space is different. We police our own territory, and Imperial intelligence has trouble penetrating clan structures. Chief weighed the options. Hera's rebellion offered ideological alignment, freedom fighters opposing tyranny, clear moral framework. But they were insurgents, operating from a position of strategic weakness. Sabine's offer provided better operational security and access to warrior culture that might respect his capabilities without trying to weaponize him politically. Concordia, Chief decided, 72 hours. Then we reassess. Hera's expression showed disappointment, but she nodded understanding. Stay alive, Chief, and if you decide you want to fight against the Empire rather than just hide from it, the rebellion could use someone with your skills. Noted, Chief said, not a commitment, but not a refusal either. They transferred to Sabine's ship quickly, Chief noting its compact efficiency. The Nightshade was built for speed and maneuverability, a scout craft or personal transport, not a cargo hauler. The interior was immaculate, weapons racks organized with military precision, and the cockpit displayed sophisticated navigation systems. Sabine handled the pre-flight checks with practiced efficiency while Chief secured himself in the passenger compartment. His armor's technical systems interfaced poorly with the ship's local networks, but he could monitor basic flight data. Orbital control, this is Nightshade requesting departure clearance, Sabine's voice came through the internal comm. Salvage operation, heading to Concordia with claimed assets. A pause. Then an officious voice responded, clearance granted, Nightshade. Transmitting flight path. Deviate from assigned route, and you will be intercepted. Acknowledged, control. The ship lifted smoothly, repulsor engines engaging with a characteristic whine. Through the viewport, Chief watched Balmorra's industrial landscape fall away, factory complexes and weapons foundries stretching to the horizon, evidence of a world devoted entirely to Imperial war production. They climbed through atmosphere without incident, though Chief's sensors detected multiple fighter patrols tracking their ascent. None moved to intercept. Vader was honoring the salvage agreement, at least for now. As they reached orbital insertion, Chief got his first clear view of the Galactic Empire's military capabilities. Star destroyers, he'd learned the vessel classification from Hera, hung in formation above Balmorra, their wedge-shaped hulls bristling with weapons batteries. Each one dwarfed UNSC frigates, and Chief counted 7 in immediate visual range. Impressive, isn't it? Sabine's voice held bitter recognition. The Empire builds ships like that by the thousands. They project power through overwhelming force, occupy systems through fear, and crush resistance before it can organize. That's what your new friends in the rebellion are fighting against. Rebellion seems outmatched, Chief observed. They are, dramatically, but they fight anyway, because the alternative is accepting tyranny. Mandalorians understand that. We've fought impossible odds for survival since our culture began. Sometimes you fight not because you can win, but because surrender means death, if not of the body, then of the spirit. Chief said nothing, but he understood the philosophy. The UNSC had faced similar calculations against the Covenant, a technologically superior enemy with overwhelming numbers. Humanity had fought anyway, because extinction was the only alternative. Calculating hyperspace jump, Sabine announced. Coordinates for Concordia locked in. Engaging hyperdrive in 3, 2, 1. The stars elongated into lines of light, and the nightshade made the transition into hyperspace. Chief felt a subtle disorientation, not painful, but noticeable. His armor's sensors struggled to process the physics involved, registering data that violated conventional space-time models. This wasn't slipspace. The mechanics were different, the sensation distinct. Whatever technology this galaxy used for faster-than-light travel, it operated on principles foreign to UNSC understanding. First time in hyperspace? Sabine asked, noting Chief's stillness. Different from my civilization's FTL method, Chief confirmed. How long to Concordia? 4 hours. Enough time for you to explain where you actually came from and what you're really doing in this galaxy. Chief considered how much to share. Sabine had earned some trust through her actions, but operational security still mattered. My ship experienced a catastrophic malfunction during faster-than-light travel. A spatial rupture, what you called a slipspace rupture, threw me into your galaxy. I don't know if it was a dimensional breach, a wormhole collapse, or something else entirely. I need to analyze the phenomenon to calculate return vectors. Return to where? Your home system, your military. To my war, Chief said simply. Humanity is fighting for survival against an enemy that wants to exterminate us. Every hour I'm absent is an hour I'm not fulfilling my operational purpose. Sabine was quiet for a long moment. Then, fighting for humanity's survival. Yeah, I understand that motivation. The Mandalorian wars nearly destroyed my people. We rebuilt, but the scars remain. The Empire tried to wipe out Mandalorian culture entirely during their purges. That's why many of us fight, not for the rebellion's ideology, but because we refuse to be erased. Why help me, then? Chief asked directly. Vader would have paid well for my capture. Because you fought 14 stormtroopers and didn't kill any of them, Sabine said. That level of control, that precision, it means you value life even in combat. Most Imperial soldiers would have massacred everyone in that warehouse. You disabled them and moved on. That tells me something about your character. Chief hadn't expected that to be noticed or valued. In UNSC operations, non-lethal engagement was simply protocol when facing potentially civilian hostiles or unconfirmed enemy combatants. But perhaps in this galaxy, where the Empire employed maximum force as standard doctrine, restraint was unusual enough to be notable. Plus, Sabine added, that armor is the most interesting piece of technology I've seen in years, and if you're really from another dimension or galaxy, the data about how you got here could revolutionize hyperspace theory. Mandalorian armorers would pay fortunes for analysis access. There was the practical motivation. Chief appreciated the honesty. My armor isn't available for study, Chief said again, firmer this time. UNSC regulations prohibit technology transfer to non-allied civilizations. Understood, but you can't stop people from looking, and Mandalorians are very good at reverse engineering interesting tech. There was amusement in her voice. Don't worry, I'm not planning to strip your armor while you sleep. But you should know what you're walking into. Mandalorian culture prizes warriors and their equipment above almost everything else. Your capabilities will attract attention, respect, and probably challenges. Challenges. Ritual combat. Testing. Mandalorians prove themselves through fighting. If you're as skilled as you demonstrated on Balmorra, some warriors will want to test themselves against you. It's not hostile, think of it as professional evaluation. Chief processed this. A warrior culture that valued combat prowess and tested outsiders through ritual fighting. Not entirely dissimilar to certain human military traditions or the Sangheili honor codes he'd encountered. Non-lethal, he asked. Usually, deaths in ritual combat are rare and considered failures of control. But injuries are expected. Mandalorian armor is tough, the Beskar alloy can deflect even lightsaber strikes. Your armor looks similarly resilient. It is, Chief confirmed. MJOLNIR had been designed to allow Spartans to survive falls from orbit and direct hits from Covenant plasma. Ritual combat against skilled warriors would be manageable. The 4-hour journey passed with Chief running diagnostic checks on his armor while Sabine provided context about the galaxy, its political structure, the Clone Wars that had preceded the Empire's rise, the Jedi Order's destruction, and the growing rebellion. She was a good briefer, organizing information logically and answering his questions without excessive elaboration. By the time the Nightshade dropped from hyperspace near Concordia, Chief had a functional understanding of the galactic situation: authoritarian central government with overwhelming military superiority, scattered resistance lacking coordination, and various independent factions navigating between the two extremes. Concordia appeared as a barren, cratered moon orbiting a larger planet, Mandalore itself, Sabine explained, still recovering from Imperial bombardment. The moon's surface was dotted with domed cities and training facilities, visibly fortified against attack. "Welcome to Mandalorian space, Chief," Sabine said as she guided the ship toward one of the surface facilities. "Let's see if my people are as interested in you as I think they'll be." Chief watched the moon's surface approach, already calculating tactical parameters for operating in this new environment. 72 hours until the salvage claim expired. 72 hours to gather intelligence, understand this galaxy's physics, and determine his next move. The war against the Covenant wasn't waiting for him. But for now, this was where the mission had brought him. And Master Chief always completed the mission. Whether dimensional breach or extreme range wormhole transit, I haven't determined. I need access to hyperspace navigation data and spatial anomaly records to calculate return vectors. Straightforward. I respect that. Elia moved closer, circling Chief with the practiced eye of someone evaluating combat equipment. That armor, power-assisted locomotion, energy shielding, integrated weapons systems. Similar function to our Beskar designs, but the underlying technology is completely alien. Where was it manufactured? Classified UNSC facility. Technology restricted by military protocol. Of course it is. Every civilization protects its military advantages. Elia stopped in front of Chief, helmet to helmet at nearly equal height. But you should understand, Mandalorian culture prizes warriors and their equipment. Your armor will generate significant interest. Some will want to test its capabilities. Others will want to test your capabilities. You've accepted Sabine's salvage claim, which means you've accepted Mandalorian hospitality. That comes with expectations. Ritual combat, Chief said. Sabine explained. Non-lethal testing of skill and equipment. Exactly. You demonstrate your worth through action, not words. Our culture respects capability above all else. Elia gestured toward the facility entrance. Come. The clan leaders will want to meet you, and we'll need to establish your status while you're in Mandalorian space. 72 hours isn't long, but it's enough to determine if you're potential ally, valuable asset, or just interesting curiosity. Chief followed Elia and Sabine into the facility, the other Mandalorians falling into loose escort formation. Not hostile, but clearly maintaining tactical awareness. Professional security protocol. The interior of the Keldub complex was functional and austere, metal corridors lit by efficient lighting, weapons racks at regular intervals, and training rooms visible through reinforced viewports. Chief observed Mandalorians of various ages engaged in combat drills, hand-to-hand techniques, weapons training, and what appeared to be zero-gravity maneuvering practice. Every movement demonstrated years of dedicated training. They entered a large central chamber, circular, with elevated seating around the perimeter and an open floor space in the center. Already present were perhaps 30 Mandalorians, their armor representing a spectrum of colors and clan markings. Conversations ceased as Chief entered, all attention focusing on him with predatory interest. Elia moved to a central position. Clan representatives. I present Master Chief Petty Officer John 117, claimed salvage under Ren contract, origin unknown, capabilities demonstrated against Imperial forces on Balmorra. Initial reports indicate he disabled 14 stormtroopers in solo engagement without fatalities, then successfully extracted from direct confrontation with Darth Vader. Murmurs rippled through the assembled Mandalorians. Chief noted the reactions: surprise, skepticism, and intense curiosity. The name, Vader, carried significant weight here. One Mandalorian stood from the elevated seating, armor painted in aggressive red and black. Confronted Vader and survived. That's either extreme skill or extreme luck. Which was it, Offworlder? Tactical extraction, Chief replied. Vader demonstrated abilities that made direct engagement inadvisable. I used environmental disruption to create evacuation window. Smart. Another Mandalorian called out, this one in green and gold armor. But running from Vader doesn't tell us what you can actually do. Mandalorian hospitality requires demonstration. You want our help accessing data. Prove you're worth the effort. Chief had anticipated this. Warrior cultures operated on respect earned through demonstrated capability. Words meant nothing without action to support them. The nightshade descended through Concordia's thin atmosphere, passing over terrain scarred by ancient conflicts. Massive blast craters pockmarked the surface between domed settlements, evidence of orbital bombardment or large-scale warfare. Chief noted the defensive architecture, reinforced structures built into the moon's natural geology, weapons emplacements disguised as terrain features, and sensor arrays positioned for maximum coverage with minimal profile. This was a civilization that had learned to survive through strategic defense and tactical preparedness. Sabine guided the ship toward a facility larger than the others, built into the side of a crater wall. As they approached, Chief's sensors detected active shield generators and what appeared to be concealed hangar bays. Military installation, despite the civilian designation Sabine had mentioned. Keldub Training Complex, Sabine explained. Neutral ground where Mandalorian clans send their warriors for advanced combat instruction. Also serves as a meeting place for inter-clan negotiations. The Empire knows about it, but they've learned not to interfere. Last time an Imperial Star Destroyer showed up in orbit making demands, 3 Mandalorian clans united long enough to destroy it. The Empire decided neutrality was preferable to open conflict. Chief filed away that information. The Empire's overwhelming force could be challenged by coordinated resistance, useful data point for understanding this galaxy's strategic dynamics. The nightshade settled into a designated landing pad with practiced precision. Through the viewport, Chief saw figures approaching, all armored in distinctive Mandalorian style, though the colors and designs varied significantly. Individual expression within cultural framework, he noted. Not standardized military equipment but personalized warrior gear. Stay close, Sabine advised as she powered down the ship's systems. You're under my salvage claim, which means you're technically my responsibility. Mandalorian hospitality extends to claimed property, but don't mistake that for weakness. If you demonstrate hostility or disrespect, they'll respond with overwhelming force. Understood, Chief said. Simple acknowledgement. He'd operated in culturally sensitive environments before, Sangheili honor protocols, Ungoi hierarchy dynamics, even the complex political structures of various colonial governments. Adaptation was part of the mission. The boarding ramp lowered with a hydraulic hiss, and Sabine descended first. Chief followed, immediately assessing the tactical environment, 12 Mandalorians in visual range, all armed with various weapons configurations. Blaster pistols, rifles, what looked like flamethrower assemblies, and several carrying weapons he didn't recognize. Their postures were relaxed but alert, professionals at rest, ready to transition to combat in seconds. One Mandalorian stepped forward from the group, armor painted in deep blue and silver, helmet adorned with distinctive markings that suggested rank or achievement. The figure's stance carried authority, and the others deferred with subtle body language. Sabine Wren, the figure said, voice female and modulated through helmet speakers. You return with interesting cargo. The Empire transmitted notice of your salvage claim, unidentified armored warrior, technology origin unknown, potential security threat. That's quite a description. Elia cries, Sabine responded with a respectful nod. This is Master Chief Petty Officer John 117, UNSC Military. His arrival in our galaxy was unintentional, and his technology is remarkable. Elia's helmet turned toward Chief, assessment frank and direct. UNSC, United Nations Space Command, not any designation in our databases. You claim to be from another galaxy. Unknown, Chief said, maintaining his standard operational security. My ship experienced spatial displacement during faster-than-light travel. What are your terms? Chief asked. Elia raised a hand, commanding silence. Standard evaluation protocol. 3 challenges, escalating difficulty. First, unarmed combat against a single opponent. Second, armed combat with training weapons. Third, tactical scenario with full equipment. You pass all three, you gain full hospitality rights and access to our databases. You fail. She paused meaningfully. You remain salvage claim with limited privileges. Duration. Chief asked. Until you yield, are rendered unconscious, or your opponent declares victory. Elia's tone carried finality. Non-lethal, but injuries are expected and respected. Mandalorian armor is tough. I suspect yours is tougher. Let's find out. Chief ran rapid tactical assessment. 3 combat evaluations against unknown opponents with unknown capabilities. Risk of equipment damage, potential injury, and exposure of MJOLNIR capabilities to a culture that valued technology highly. But refusal would mean limited access to the data he needed, and potentially hostile relationship with the only faction currently offering assistance. Accepted, Chief said. The assembled Mandalorians erupted in approval, not cheering exactly, but a collective sound of satisfaction. They'd wanted this, Chief realized. Wanted to test the unknown warrior in distinctive armor, wanted to see if his reputation matched reality. First challenge begins immediately, Elia announced. Opponent, Rafe Keel, unarmed combat specialist, veteran of the Clone Wars and Imperial suppression campaigns. A Mandalorian rose from the seating, massive, easily matching Chief's height and surpassing his bulk. The armor was scarred and pitted from countless engagements, painted in muted gray with kill markings along both vambraces. Rafe descended to the central floor, removing his helmet to reveal a weathered face with cybernetic eye implants. No disrespect intended, Offwelder, Rafe said, his voice a low rumble. But I've fought Jedi, killed battle droids by the hundreds, and survived close quarters with Wookiees. Your armor's impressive, but armor only helps if you know how to use it. Chief removed his helmet, a calculated decision. Mandalorian culture valued face-to-face combat, personal honor, and direct engagement. Keeping the helmet would be perceived as hiding behind technology. The assembled Mandalorians reacted to his appearance, younger than most expected for someone with his combat record, the UNSC insignia visible on his undersuit, and the slight scarring around his neural interface ports that marked him as extensively augmented. Child soldier, one Mandalorian muttered, and there was respect in the observation rather than pity. Mandalorians began combat training young, they understood necessity. Chief Mag locked his helmet to his armor and moved to face Rafe in the center of the chamber. The floor was reinforced durasteel, designed to handle impacts from armored combatants. Good. They'd anticipated the stress. Elia raised her hand. Standard challenge rules. Combat continues until yield, unconsciousness, or mutual cessation. Begin. Rafe moved first, closing the distance with surprising speed for his size. Chief read the attack instantly, powerful haymaker aimed at his helmet interface, intended to stagger or disrupt his HUD systems. Chief sidestepped smoothly, his Spartan reflexes making Rafe's attack seem to unfold in slow motion. Chief's counter-strike was measured, a palm strike to Rafe's center mass, using just enough force to demonstrate capability without causing serious injury. The impact sent Rafe stumbling backward 3 steps, and the big Mandalorian's expression shifted from confident to cautious. Fast, Rafe acknowledged. Faster than you look. Let's see how you handle grappling. Rafe charged, attempting to close and use his weight advantage. Chief allowed the engagement. He needed to assess Mandalorian combat techniques, understand their training methodology. They grappled, and Chief immediately recognized sophisticated close-quarters fighting, leverage points, joint manipulation attempts, and strikes designed to exploit armor weak points. Impressive. Rafe was a skilled practitioner. But Chief had trained with the best hand-to-hand instructors the UNSC could provide, had fought Covenant warriors whose strength surpassed human limits, and had survived close combat with the Flood. He countered Rafe's techniques with precise blocks and redirections, never committing full strength but demonstrating superior technical skill. Rafe attempted a leg sweep. Chief jumped it, landed, and swept Rafe's supporting leg with carefully controlled force. The big Mandalorian went down hard, and Chief followed with an armored knee positioned inches from Rafe's throat, the finishing position, held without contact. Yield. Rafe said immediately, no shame in his voice. You're better. Significantly better. Chief stood, offering his hand. Rafe accepted the assistance up, and the watching Mandalorians voiced approval, acknowledging both combatants' skill. Challenge 1. Complete, Elia announced. Impressive control, Chief. Most warriors would have used full force to establish dominance. You demonstrated superiority while respecting your opponent. That shows wisdom. Chief simply nodded. He'd learned long ago that unnecessary violence was inefficient. Mission objectives were achieved through appropriate force application, not excessive brutality. Challenge 2. Elia continued. Armed combat with training weapons. Opponent, Murta Geth, weapons specialist and tactical instructor. A smaller Mandalorian descended, female, based on build and movement patterns, armor painted in distinctive purple and white. She selected 2 training weapons from a rack, energy batons, their tips glowing with contained electrical charge. These are set to stun rather than kill, Murta explained, her voice sharp and precise. Direct hit will disrupt your nervous system temporarily. Your shields might absorb some impact, but repeated hits will overwhelm them. I've trained for 18 years with these weapons. No offense, but you're about to learn why Mandalorians respect blade work. Chief selected a training weapon of his own, a single energy baton, testing its weight and balance. Similar principles to the energy sword combat he'd trained against, though the form was different. He settled into ready stance, analyzing Murta's positioning. She was confident, skilled, and she had no idea what a Spartan 2 was capable of. Begin, Elia called. Murta attacked with fluid precision, dual batons weaving complex patterns designed to overwhelm defense and create openings. Chief parried, blocked, and analyzed her technique. Excellent form, sophisticated combinations. She was probing his defenses, looking for weaknesses. Chief found hers first. Her left-hand attack had a fractional tell, a slight shoulder dip before each strike. Chief waited for it, then moved with Spartan speed. His baton intercepted her left attack, redirected it across her own centerline, and his follow-through swept her right baton aside. In the opening, Chief's weapon stopped 1 inch from her throat. The entire exchange took 2 seconds. Murta froze, then slowly lowered her weapons. Mother of, she trailed off, staring at Chief with newfound respect. You analyzed my entire fighting style in 30 seconds of engagement. That's not normal combat processing. Enhanced tactical assessment, Chief said simply. Neural augmentation and combat experience. Challenge 2. Complete, Elia announced, and now her voice carried genuine interest rather than ceremonial formality. You're not just skilled, you're augmented, cybernetically enhanced. Biological augmentation, Chief corrected. Surgical enhancement of nervous system, muscular structure, skeletal reinforcement, and sensory processing. Combined with powered armor integration. The Mandalorians exchanged glances. They understood augmentation. Many had cybernetic enhancements themselves, but Chief's description suggested something more comprehensive, more fundamental. Final challenge, Elia said. Tactical scenario, full equipment authorized. You'll face multiple opponents in simulated combat environment. Objective, secure designated target and extract within time limit while under active resistance. Opponents will use training-grade weapons and full tactical coordination. This tests not just individual skill but strategic thinking. Chief retrieved his helmet, mag-locking it back into place. His HUD activated, systems running green. Parameters, 6 opponents, 5-minute time limit, urban terrain simulation. Target is a data core located at grid coordinates that will be provided when scenario begins. Opponents will attempt to prevent acquisition and extraction. Elia's helmet tilted slightly. This is the test that most offworlders fail. Mandalorians train in squad tactics from childhood. Individual skill doesn't overcome coordinated team resistance. Acknowledged, Chief said. In his HUD, countdown timers and tactical overlays activated automatically. This was familiar territory. Mission objectives, hostile resistance, time-critical extraction. This was what Spartans were built for. The assembled Mandalorians moved to observation positions as the central chamber's floor reconfigured, walls rising and holographic projections creating an urban environment, buildings, streets, obstacles, and cover positions. Sophisticated simulation technology, Chief noted. comparable to UNSC training facilities. 6 Mandalorians entered the simulation zone, all in full armor and carrying training weapons. Chief recognized Rafe and Murta among them. They spread out immediately, establishing defensive positions and overlapping fields of fire around the target location, a glowing holographic marker at the simulation's center. Scenario begins in 10 seconds, Elia's voice announced through external speakers. Target coordinates transmitted. Clock starts on your first movement, Chief. Chief's HUD updated with the objective location. He analyzed the tactical situation rapidly. 6 hostiles in coordinated defensive formation, limited approach vectors, time pressure forcing aggressive action rather than patient stalking. They'd designed this to be nearly impossible, expecting him to fail, to demonstrate that individual capability couldn't overcome coordinated resistance. They hadn't accounted for how many times Chief had successfully completed impossible missions. The countdown reached 0. Chief moved. "What are your terms?" Chief asked. Elia raised a hand, commanding silence. Standard evaluation protocol. 3 challenges, escalating difficulty. First, unarmed combat against a single opponent. Second, armed combat with training weapons. Third, tactical scenario with full equipment. You pass all 3, you gain full hospitality rights and access to our databases. You fail. She paused meaningfully. You remain salvage claim with limited privileges. Duration. Chief asked. Until you yield, are rendered unconscious, or your opponent declares victory. Elia's tone carried finality. Non-lethal, but injuries are expected and respected. Mandalorian armor is tough. I suspect yours is tougher. Let's find out. Chief ran rapid tactical assessment. 3 combat evaluations against unknown opponents with unknown capabilities. Risk of equipment damage, potential injury, and exposure of MJOLNIR capabilities to a culture that valued technology highly. But refusal would mean limited access to the data he needed, and potentially hostile relationship with the only faction currently offering assistance. Accepted, Chief said. The assembled Mandalorians erupted in approval, not cheering exactly, but a collective sound of satisfaction. They'd wanted this, Chief realized. Wanted to test the unknown warrior in distinctive armor, wanted to see if his reputation matched reality. First challenge begins immediately, Elia announced. Opponent, Rafe Keel, unarmed combat specialist, veteran of the Clone Wars and Imperial suppression campaigns. A Mandalorian rose from the seating, massive, easily matching Chief's height and surpassing his bulk. The armor was scarred and pitted from countless engagements, painted in muted gray with kill markings along both vambraces. Rafe descended to the central floor, removing his helmet to reveal a weathered face with cybernetic eye implants. No disrespect intended, Offworlder, Rafe said, his voice a low rumble. But I've fought Jedi, killed battle droids by the hundreds, and survived close quarters with Wookiees. Your armor's impressive, but armor only helps if you know how to use it. You could have killed those stormtroopers on Balmorra. With your capabilities and weapons, they wouldn't have stood a chance. But you chose non-lethal engagement against hostiles who were absolutely trying to kill you. That level of discipline is rare. Most soldiers, Imperial or Rebel, don't bother with restraint. Chief continued his equipment check, but he was listening. Understanding the values and perspectives of potential allies was critical for operational success. The Empire doesn't value restraint, Sabine continued. They teach maximum force, overwhelming violence, and fear as control mechanisms. Even the rebellion, fighting for freedom, sometimes loses sight of proportional response in the desperation. But you, she gestured toward him, you fight like someone who remembers why they're fighting. Not for glory or revenge, but for protection. Humanity's survival, you said. That kind of motivation creates a different kind of warrior. Spartans were created to protect humanity, Chief said. Everything else is secondary to that mission. Created, Sabine repeated, catching the specific word choice. Not trained. Created. You're not naturally enhanced, you were engineered for this. Chief met her gaze directly. Spartan 2 program. Biological augmentation at adolescence, decades of training, psychological conditioning for mission prioritization. 75 candidates entered the program. 33 survived augmentation. We were created to end a human civil war. We were deployed to stop human extinction. Sabine was quiet for a long moment. How old were you when they augmented you? 14 standard years. Child soldiers, Sabine said softly. Mandalorians start combat training young, but nothing like that. They took children and made them into living weapons. They made us into humanity's protectors, Chief corrected. Without the Spartan program, the human race would have been exterminated by the Covenant within the first year of the war. Every Spartan who survived has saved millions of lives through their service. And do you ever wonder what you might have been, if they hadn't taken you? The question was one Chief had long since stopped asking himself. No, this is my purpose. This is what I was made for. Speculation about alternatives is inefficient. Sabine studied him with an expression Chief couldn't quite read, something between sympathy and admiration. You're the most dangerous person I've ever met. You know that, right? Not because of your armor or your augmentations, but because you're absolutely certain of your purpose. No doubt, no hesitation, just mission execution. That kind of clarity is terrifying. It's necessary, Chief said. Maybe. Sabine pushed off from the doorframe. Get some rest, Chief. Jace will have preliminary data ready in a few hours. After that, she paused. After that, you'll need to make decisions about what comes next. The Empire won't stop looking for you. Vader doesn't forget, and your 72-hour protection expires soon. After Sabine left, Chief continued his equipment maintenance in silence. His MA-5D assault rifle needed cleaning. The engagement on Balmorra had contaminated the action with local atmospheric particulates. His armor's self-repair systems were already addressing minor damage from the combat scenarios, nanotech weaving new connections and reinforcing stress points. While his hands worked through familiar maintenance routines, his mind processed the tactical situation. He was stranded in an unknown galaxy, facing a hostile authoritarian government with physics-defying enforcers, dependent on the temporary protection of a warrior culture that valued his capabilities but would not shelter him indefinitely. The mission parameters were clear: gather intelligence about the spatial anomaly, calculate return vectors to UNSC space, and extract before Imperial forces could capture him and his technology. Chief's combat doctrine had been forged through hundreds of operations against superior numbers: assess, adapt, execute. The Mandalorians expected direct assault or cautious infiltration. He would give them neither. He sprinted toward the nearest building structure at full augmented speed, his MJOLNIR servos amplifying his already enhanced musculature. The Mandalorians tracking him reacted with professional speed, weapons coming up, coordinating fire lanes, but Chief was already in motion, using a durasteel crate as a springboard and launching himself toward a second-story ledge. The jump carried him 15 feet vertically. He caught the ledge one-handed, pulled himself up, and immediately rolled as blaster fire, set to training intensity but still dangerous, scored the position where he'd been. The shots came from 3 different angles, coordinated suppression fire designed to pin him down. Chief didn't stay pinned. His HUD mapped the 6 hostile signatures, calculating firing positions and movement patterns. 2 were holding the target location directly, establishing a strongpoint. 4 were mobile, attempting to box him in and force engagement on their terms. Standard tactical doctrine for defending against superior individual combatant: deny freedom of movement, force sustained engagement where numbers advantage could be leveraged. Chief vaulted from the second-story position, landing in a narrow alley between simulation buildings. His shields absorbed the impact stress, regenerating quickly. He moved through the urban terrain with practiced efficiency, using cover and concealment exactly as he'd been trained in countless UNSC urban warfare scenarios. A Mandalorian appeared at the alley's end, one of the mobile hunters. The warrior raised his weapon, but Chief was faster. He fired his appropriated training blaster, the stun bolt catching the Mandalorian center mass. Shields flared but held. These Mandalorians had energy shielding too, though less sophisticated than MJOLNIR's regenerating systems. Chief closed distance before the Mandalorian could recover, delivering a precisely controlled strike that overwhelmed the warrior's shield and triggered the armor's training safety systems. The Mandalorian went down, training protocols automatically removing him from active scenario. 5 opponents remaining. Timer: 3 minutes, 40 seconds. Chief's motion tracker showed two hostiles converging on his position from opposite directions, pincer movement, attempting to catch him in crossfire. He scaled the building wall again, using windowsills and architectural features as handholds, moving vertically while they expected horizontal displacement. From his elevated position, Chief had clear view of the tactical situation. The two Mandalorians at the target location, one was Wraith, identifiable by his distinctive armor, had established overlapping fields of fire covering all ground-level approaches. The three remaining mobile opponents were adjusting, searching the alley system for him. Chief made his decision: eliminate the mobile threats first, then deal with the strongpoint. He dropped from the building directly onto one of the searching Mandalorians, Murta, based on her armor configuration. The impact drove her to the ground, Chief's armored weight overwhelming her defensive posture. His training weapon delivered a stun burst before she could counter, and her armor systems registered combat ineffectiveness. 4 remaining. Timer: 3 minutes, 10 seconds. Blaster fire from 2 directions converged on Chief's position. He moved immediately, sprinting along the street while his shields absorbed glancing hits. His HUD calculated firing solutions, and he returned fire with disciplined 3-round bursts, UNSC training overriding the local tendency toward full auto spray. One burst caught a Mandalorian emerging from cover, dropping his shields and triggering safety protocols. 3 opponents left, and Chief had successfully eliminated the mobile hunting element. Now the difficult part: assaulting a prepared defensive position held by experienced warriors. Timer: 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Chief approached the target location from an unexpected vector, not through the streets, but across the rooftops. He moved in silent sprint, using the simulation's ambient noise and his Spartan stealth training to mask his approach. The 2 Mandalorians holding the target were watching ground-level approaches, confident their elevated position and overlapping fire would stop any assault. They didn't see Chief until he was already dropping from above. He landed between them, and for one perfect moment, neither Wraith nor his partner could fob hitting each other. Chief exploited that moment ruthlessly, his training weapon sweeping left in a wide arc that caught Wraith's partner across the helmet, the stun charge overloading shields and triggering safety shutoff. Wraith spun, bringing his weapon to bear at point-blank range. Chief's free hand shot out, gripping the blaster's barrel and redirecting it skyward even as Wraith fired. The stun bolt discharged harmlessly into the holographic sky. They grappled, and Chief felt Wraith's considerable strength testing his armor's servo-assisted power. The big Mandalorian was incredibly strong, probably cybernetically enhanced, but Chief's Spartan augmentations and MJOLNIR amplification gave him the edge. He broke Wraith's weapon grip with a leverage technique, swept the Mandalorian's leg, and followed him down with a training weapon pressed to Wraith's chest plate. Yield, Wraith said immediately, recognizing defeat. Chief stood, moved to the target location, and retrieved the simulated data core. His HUD updated, objective secured. Now he needed extraction within the time limit. 1 Mandalorian remained active, the last mobile hunter, who'd been systematically searching the urban terrain while Chief eliminated the others. The warrior appeared at the plaza's edge, weapon raised, blocking the most direct extraction route. Timer: 1 minute, 15 seconds. Chief could engage and eliminate the last opponent, but that would consume time he didn't have. Alternative approach: speed and shields. He calculated the extraction vector, adjusted his course, and ran. The Mandalorian fired, disciplined bursts aimed at Chief's center mass. Chief's shields flared with each hit, percentage dropping steadily, 78%, 65%, 51%. He didn't stop running, didn't return fire, just maintained maximum speed toward the extraction zone marked on his HUD. The Mandalorian adjusted aim, leading Chief's movement. The next burst caught him squarely, shields at 32%, 18%, 7%. One more solid hit would collapse his protection entirely. Chief reached the extraction zone with 3 seconds remaining, shields holding at 4%. He'd completed the objective. Target secured, extracted within time limit, 5 opponents eliminated, 1 bypassed through tactical movement rather than engagement. Scenario complete, Elia's voice announced. Time: 4 minutes, 57 seconds. All primary objectives achieved. The holographic environment dissolved, returning the chamber to its normal configuration. The 6 Mandalorians who'd participated in the scenario removed their helmets, and Chief noted their expressions, respect, surprise, and professional appreciation for capability demonstrated. Ire without risk. Rafe approached first, extending his hand. That drop attack from above, brutal efficiency. You used our own defensive positioning against us. And that final run, tanking blaster fire to meet time objective rather than engaging the last hostile, most warriors would have tried to eliminate all threats. You prioritized mission completion over personal victory. Mission success is the only objective that matters, Chief said simply. Elia descended from her observation position. 3 challenges, 3 completions. Not just completions, exceptional demonstrations of individual capability, tactical thinking, and strategic prioritization. The Mandalorian clans recognize your worthiness, Master Chief. You've earned full hospitality rights. The assembled Mandalorians voiced approval, a low, rumbling acknowledgement that carried weight in this warrior culture. Which means, Elia continued, you now have access to our databases, training facilities, and technical resources for the duration of your stay in Mandalorian space. 72 hours before the salvage claim expires and the Empire can legally demand your location. What do you need? Chief had his priorities organized: hyperspace navigation data, spatial anomaly records for the past standard year, and any documented cases of ships experiencing unexpected dimensional displacement or similar phenomena. Also technical specifications on your faster-than-light drive mechanics. Elia gestured to one of the Mandalorians observing, the one with the cybernetic eye implants Chief had seen earlier. Jace Ordo, our technical specialist and hyperspace theorist. He'll provide access to what you need. Jace approached, his mechanical eyes whirring as they focused on Chief. Spatial anomalies are rare but documented. Most are natural: gravitational distortions, stellar phenomena, dark matter concentrations affecting hyperspace lanes. But there have been unusual cases. Ships disappearing without trace, emergency beacons activating from impossible coordinates, even reports of vessels emerging from hyperspace with crews claiming to have experienced temporal displacement. He paused. If your arrival was similar, the energy signature might have been detected by Imperial sensors or independent monitoring stations. I can cross-reference anomaly data with your arrival timeframe on Balmorra. Derrit, Chief said. Any data about the spatial rupture that brought him here was critical for calculating return vectors. It'll take time to compile the data, Jace warned. Maybe 12 hours for comprehensive analysis. Meanwhile, you should rest. You just completed 3 combat evaluations without breaking stride. Impressive, but even enhanced physiology has limits. Chief wanted to argue that he'd operated for 72 hours straight during critical missions, that Spartans were trained to function through exhaustion, that rest was a luxury he couldn't afford. But tactical wisdom suggested Jace was right. He needed to let local specialists work while he recovered and prepared for whatever came next. Quarters? Chief asked. Sabine, who'd been observing from the elevated seating, descended to join them. I'll show you. The complex has guest accommodations for visiting warriors. Nothing fancy, but functional. Chief followed Sabine through the facility's corridors, noting the respectful distance other Mandalorians now maintained. He'd proven himself in their eyes, earned status through demonstrated capability rather than reputation or political positioning. The quarters were indeed functional: small room with a cot, weapons maintenance station, and basic hygiene facilities. Spartan by UNSC standards, but Chief had slept in far worse conditions. You impressed them, Sabine said, leaning against the doorframe. Elia rarely gives full hospitality recognition to outsiders. The fact that you completed all 3 challenges without using lethal force when you clearly could have, that matters to Mandalorians. We respect warriors who control their strength. Unnecessary casualties are mission failures, Chief said, removing his helmet and beginning post-combat equipment check. His shields had recharged to full capacity, armor systems were nominal, and his appropriated blaster rifle still had 67% charge remaining. That's why I helped you, Sabine said quietly. But underneath those tactical objectives, Chief recognized a deeper concern. Every hour he remained in this galaxy was an hour humanity fought the Covenant without him. The UNSC couldn't afford to lose Spartan assets. His absence could mean the difference between victory and defeat in critical engagements. He needed to get home. A chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. Chief Mag locked his partially disassembled rifle to the weapons maintenance station and opened the door. Jace stood there, his cybernetic eyes glowing faintly in the corridor's dim lighting. Preliminary data's ready. You're going to want to see this. There's something very unusual about the energy signature from your arrival. Chief followed Jace to a technical laboratory filled with holographic displays and analysis equipment. The central display showed a rotating three-dimensional map of local space, overlaid with energy signature readings and temporal data. This, Jace said, highlighting a specific region of space above Balmorra, is where you emerged. The energy signature was detected by 3 different monitoring stations, 2 Imperial, 1 independent. The readings are unprecedented. He expanded the data, showing complex waveform patterns. Normal hyperspace emergence produces a characteristic energy spike, predictable, consistent. Your arrival produced something completely different. Look at these resonance frequencies. Chief studied the data. Even without expertise in this galaxy's physics, he could see the anomaly. The waveform patterns were chaotic, multidimensional, and showing characteristics that suggested interaction between multiple physical frameworks. It's as if 2 different faster-than-light mechanics collided, Jace said, excitement evident in his voice. Your slipspace, whatever that is, and our hyperspace, intersecting at a single point. The energy release should have been catastrophic, should have torn apart anything at the convergence point. But somehow, you survived. Your armor must have incredible protective capabilities. MJOLNIR is designed for worst-case survival scenarios, Chief confirmed. But this suggests the rupture wasn't random. 2 FTL systems interacting implies they were both active simultaneously at the same spatial coordinates. Exactly. Which means somewhere in this galaxy, there might be another spatial rupture point, the exit, corresponding to your entrance. If we can locate it, and if it's still active or can be reactivated, you might have a pathway home. Chief felt something he rarely allowed himself to experience, hope. Can you calculate the exit point's location? Jace's expression became more cautious. Theoretically, yes, but I need more data. Specifically, I need detailed information about your slipspace mechanics, how it functions, what energy frequencies it uses, how it interacts with local space-time. Without the data, I'm just guessing. Chief made a tactical decision. The information Jace requested was classified, but operational necessity overrode protocol when mission success required it. I can provide technical specifications on UNSC slipspace drives. What's your security clearance level here? Mandalorian technical data is clan protected. I won't share what you tell me without your explicit permission, that's the creed. Chief accessed his armor's databanks, pulling up the relevant technical documentation. Slipspace is an alternate dimensional space that permits faster-than-light travel without violating relativistic constraints in normal space. Ships enter slipspace through precisely calculated ruptures in spacetime, navigate in the alternate dimension where distances are compressed, then re-emerge at the destination coordinates. For the next 2 hours, Chief and Jace worked through the technical data, comparing UNSC slipspace mechanics with this galaxy's hyperspace technology. The fundamental principles were different. Slipspace was dimensional transit, hyperspace appeared to be accelerated movement through a parallel dimension, but there were intersection points in the underlying physics. This is revolutionary, Jace said, his cybernetic eyes recording data streams. If Mandalorian engineers could combine these principles. No. Forget that. Focus. Your exit point. He ran calculations through the holographic interface. Based on the energy signatures and the interaction patterns, I can narrow the potential exit location to a sector of space approximately. He paused, expression falling. Approximately in wild space, far beyond the outer rim, in regions that are barely explored. How far? 3 weeks hyperspace travel from here. Maybe more, depending on route safety and Imperial interdiction. Jace met Chief's eyes. And here's the problem, that region of space is currently under Imperial survey. They're expanding into wild space, establishing new military outposts, searching for resources and strategic positions. If there's a spatial anomaly there, they've probably already detected it. Chief processed this information rapidly. The exit point existed but was in Imperial-controlled space, requiring weeks of travel to reach. His 72-hour protection window would expire long before he could get there, and attempting the journey would mean operating in hostile territory against an enemy that was actively searching for him. The Empire knows about the anomaly, Chief said. Not a question, a tactical conclusion. Almost certainly, and if they've connected it to your arrival on Balmorra. Jace trailed off, the implications clear. They'd be waiting for him. Vader would be waiting for him. The mission had just become significantly more complicated. Chief stood before the holographic display, analyzing the strategic situation with the same methodical precision he'd applied to countless UNSC operations. The exit point was in wild space, 3 weeks travel through territory increasingly controlled by Imperial forces. Vader knew he'd survived their encounter. The Empire would be monitoring the anomaly location, waiting for him to attempt return transit. It was a trap, obviously, deliberately, and unavoidably. And Chief had no choice but to walk into it. There's another problem, Jace said, manipulating the holographic display to show temporal data. The energy signature from your arrival is degrading. Whatever intersection point exists between your slipspace and our hyperspace, it's not stable. Based on decay rates, I estimate you have maybe 3 standard months before the rupture collapses completely. After that, he made a helpless gesture. You'd be stranded permanently. 3 months. 90 days to reach an Imperial-controlled location, somehow access the spatial anomaly, and transit back to UNSC space. All while evading the galaxy's most dangerous enforcer and his unlimited military resources. The mission parameters were impossible by any conventional assessment. Chief had completed impossible missions before. I need a ship, Chief said. Fast, well-armed, and capable of extended independent operation. Also access to local star charts, Imperial patrol patterns, and any intelligence on their wild space operations. Jace's cybernetic eyes flickered with concern. You're planning to go there. Alone. Into Imperial space. Mission requires it. The longer I delay, the more time the Empire has to fortify the anomaly location and prepare countermeasures. That's suicide. Even with your capabilities, you can't fight an entire Imperial fleet. They'll have Star Destroyers, TIE fighter squadrons, possibly even Inquisitors beyond Vader himself. You need support, allies, backup, resources. Unavailable, Chief said flatly. The Mandalorian clans won't risk open conflict with the Empire for one outsider. The rebellion lacks the military capability to assault Imperial positions in wild space. I'm the only asset available for this operation. The laboratory door opened, and Sabine entered with Elia close behind. Both had clearly been listening through the facility's monitoring systems, operational security for a training complex, Chief noted without judgment. We heard, Elia said, her voice carrying the weight of command decisions made under impossible circumstances. You're right that the Mandalorian clans won't commit to open warfare with the Empire over your situation. We've maintained careful neutrality, and breaking that would endanger every Mandalorian world. She paused. But that doesn't mean we'll do nothing. Sabine moved to the holographic display, studying the wild space sector. The Nightshade is fast enough to make the journey in 2.5 weeks if we push the hyperdrive and avoid Imperial checkpoints. I know smuggler routes through the Outer Rim that don't appear on official charts. Not safe routes, but less monitored than standard hyperspace lanes. You're volunteering for this operation? Chief asked directly. I'm honoring my salvage claim, Sabine replied with a slight smile. You're still technically my responsibility for another 56 hours. After that, she shrugged. Let's say I'm curious how this story ends. Plus, the technical data about your slipspace mechanics is worth the risk. If I survive, I'll be the only Mandalorian with verified knowledge of alternate dimensional transit technology. Elia crossed her arms. I can't officially sanction this operation. If you're captured, the Mandalorian clans will deny any involvement. But unofficially, she gestured to Jace. Our technical specialist can provide you with everything in our intelligence databases regarding Imperial wild space operations. We've had scouts monitoring their expansion, Information that might prove useful. Why help? Chief asked. The question that always mattered, motivation. Because the Empire destroyed Mandalore, Elia said, and for the first time Chief heard genuine emotion break through her professional command demeanor. They bombarded our homeworld, killed millions, and tried to erase our culture from the galaxy. We survive by maintaining neutrality, by being too useful to eliminate and too dangerous to suppress completely. But every small action against Imperial interests, every minor resistance. She met Chief's gaze. It matters. You're not our fight, but you're the Empire's problem. That makes you tactically valuable. Pragmatic alliance based on mutual benefit and shared opposition to a common enemy. Chief understood that framework perfectly. It was how the UNSC had negotiated temporary ceasefires with various Covenant splinter groups during the war's final years. Accepted, Chief said. What resources can you provide? Over the next 6 hours, they planned the operation with professional military precision. Jace compiled intelligence packages covering Imperial patrol patterns, known military installations in wild space, and documented reports from Mandalorian scouts who'd operated in the region. Sabine prepared the Nightshade for extended operation, upgrading weapons systems, maximizing fuel capacity, and installing enhanced sensor packages for detecting Imperial interdiction. Chief studied the star charts obsessively, memorizing hyperspace routes, identifying choke points where Imperial forces might establish ambush positions, and calculating alternative vectors for every stage of the journey. The tactical complexity was enormous. This galaxy's scale dwarfed anything in UNSC-controlled space, distances measured in thousands of light-years rather than hundreds. 20 hours after the planning session began, Chief and Sabine were ready for departure. The Mandalorian clans gathered in the hangar bay for the departure, not a formal ceremony, but a warrior's acknowledgement. Elia presented Chief with a gift, a Mandalorian vambrace, sized to fit over his MJOLNIR armor, equipped with integrated weapons systems and a personal energy shield generator compatible with his existing shields. Consider it a loan, Elia said. If you survive and return, we'd appreciate the technical data exchange between your armor and our equipment. If you don't survive, she paused meaningfully, then at least you died with Mandalorian weapons at your side. There's honor in that. Chief accepted the vambrace, allowing Sabine to help integrate it with his armor's systems. The installation was remarkably smooth. Mandalorian engineering interfaced cleanly with MJOLNIR's architecture, suggesting similar underlying design philosophies despite completely different technological origins. The vambrace added fiber cord whip for grappling and restraint, miniaturized rocket dart launcher, integrated flamethrower, and enhanced sensor package. Useful tools for the mission ahead. Rafe approached next, carrying something wrapped in cloth. Your performance in the combat scenarios was exceptional. Among Mandalorians, such capability earns respect gifts. He unwrapped the cloth, revealing a vibroblade, a weapon Chief had observed Mandalorians carrying but hadn't yet seen in action. The blade vibrates at ultrasonic frequencies, allowing it to cut through most materials including light armor. It's not a lightsaber, but it's effective in close quarters. Chief accepted the weapon, testing its weight and balance. Well crafted, lethal, and small enough to integrate with his existing loadout. Thank you. This will be useful. Don't die stupidly, Wraith said bluntly. The galaxy has too few warriors worth respecting. Murta was last, presenting Chief with data chips, Mandalorian combat techniques, advanced tactical doctrine, and stealth infiltration methods. You demonstrated exceptional baseline capability, but you're not familiar with this galaxy's specific combat dynamics. Study these during your journey. They might keep you alive. Chief secured the data chips in his armor's storage compartment. Every resource, every advantage, every piece of intelligence, all mission critical for what lay ahead. The Nightshade departed Concordia with minimal fanfare, lifting smoothly from the hangar and climbing toward orbital insertion. Chief secured himself in the passenger compartment, already reviewing the data Murta had provided. The information was extensive: lightsaber combat countermeasures for non-force sensitive combatants, tactics for engaging shielded opponents, methods for defeating probe droids and Imperial surveillance systems. Valuable intelligence. The Mandalorians had been fighting the Empire longer than he'd been in this galaxy. Their experience was a resource he'd be foolish to ignore. Calculating hyperspace jump, Sabine announced through the internal comm. First leg of the journey takes us through the outer rim to a refueling station at Nar Shaddaa. Not the safest port, but the huts don't cooperate with Imperial Customs inspections. We can resupply without flagging attention. Duration? Chief asked. 36 hours. Once we're in hyperspace, you should rest. I know you Spartans are tough, but even you need sleep eventually. Chief didn't argue. She was correct. Spartans could operate through exhaustion, but peak performance required adequate rest. He'd learned that lesson during training when instructors had deliberately sleep-deprived candidates to teach the importance of resource management. The stars elongated into hyperspace, and Chief felt that same subtle disorientation from his first jump. His armor's sensors struggled with the physics, reporting impossible measurements and contradictory data. He'd need to understand hyperspace mechanics better if he was going to operate effectively in this galaxy. For now, he allowed himself to rest, not full sleep, but the light combat nap that Spartans learned to deploy during brief respite periods. His enhanced physiology could extract maximum benefit from even minimal rest, and his augmented mind maintained partial awareness of his surroundings even while his body recovered. 6 hours into the journey, Chief's tactical awareness registered a change. The ship's vibration pattern had altered subtly, not damage or malfunction, but something in the external environment affecting their hyperspace transit. He moved to the cockpit immediately. Sabine was hunched over her controls, attention fixed on sensor displays that showed concerning data. Problem? Chief asked. Maybe. We're picking up gravity well distortions ahead, artificial, which means someone's using an interdictor cruiser to pull ships out of hyperspace. Could be pirates, could be Imperial Customs inspection. Either way, we're going to be forced to drop out of hyperspace in. She checked her calculations. 4 minutes. Evasion options. None. Interdictors generate massive gravity shadows that override hyperspace navigation. We could try to bypass, but that would add days to our journey and potentially flag us as suspicious to any Imperial monitoring stations. Sabine's hands moved across controls, preparing the ship for emergency egress. We drop out, assess the situation, and respond accordingly. Get ready for potential combat. Chief returned to the passenger compartment and retrieved his MA-5D assault rifle. He'd conserved ammunition carefully, still had 184 rounds of 7.62mm remaining across his magazines. Not enough for sustained engagement, but sufficient for tactical operations. His appropriated blaster rifle provided backup. And the new Mandalorian Vambrace added additional weapons options. The Nightshade shuddered, and suddenly they were in normal space. Sabine's sensors immediately painted the tactical situation. One interdictor-class cruiser, distinctly Imperial design, with 6 TIE fighters in patrol formation. The comm system crackled with an authoritative voice. Unidentified freighter, this is Imperial Customs Patrol. Power down weapons systems and prepare for inspection. Failure to comply will result in immediate engagement. Sabine muttered something in Mandalorian that Chief's translator rendered as extremely creative profanity. They're running inspections on this route now. That's new. The Empire must be tightening security. Because they're looking for me, Chief said. The tactical logic was clear. Increase inspection frequency on routes leading toward wild space, flag any unusual vessels or unknown contacts. Standard interdiction doctrine. Probably. What do you want to do? We could fight. The Nightshade can handle TIE fighters, and I've got weapons that'll hurt that cruiser. But it'll flag us across the entire Imperial network. Every patrol, every checkpoint, every Star Destroyer will be looking for us. Chief considered. Fighting would compromise their operational security but might be necessary if the inspection revealed his presence. Submitting to inspection risked capture if Imperial intelligence had distributed his description to customs patrols. Can you fake inspection compliance while plotting escape vector? Chief asked. Maybe. Play cooperative. Let them think we're just another smuggler hauling contraband, then jump to hyperspace before they can track to beam us. Sabine's hands were already moving across controls. It's risky. If they detect our hyperspace calculations before we jump, they'll open fire. It, Chief decided. The risk of immediate engagement was preferable to certain capture. Sabine activated the comm. Imperial Patrol, this is Nightshade. Powering down weapons. We're carrying medical supplies to Outer Rim colonies, standard commercial transport. Acknowledged, Nightshade. Maintain position while inspection team approaches. Through the viewport, Chief watched a small boarding shuttle detach from the interdictor cruiser, moving toward their position. Standard Imperial procedure. Board the vessel, inspect cargo and crew, scan for contraband or fugitives. Hyperspace calculations complete, Sabine said quietly. On my mark, we jump. But they'll definitely open fire once they realize we're running. Shields? Chief asked. At full capacity, we can take a few hits from TIE fighters, maybe even survive a turbolaser burst from the cruiser if we're lucky. But sustained engagement will overwhelm us. The boarding shuttle was halfway across the distance between ships. Chief's tactical assessment ran probability calculations, 30 seconds until boarding, 15 seconds for Imperial troops to enter the ship, another 10 to reach the passenger compartment where they'd detect him. Total time window, 55 seconds. How long to hyperspace transition after initiating jump? Chief asked. 5 seconds to spin up the hyperdrive, 3 seconds for jump calculation confirmation. 8 seconds total. 47 seconds for the Empire to detect their escape attempt and open fire. Wait until the shuttle is committed to approach, Chief instructed. Maximum distance from the cruiser but too close to abort boarding. Then jump immediately. The shuttle won't have time to return, and the cruiser will need several seconds to retarget from expecting compliance to active engagement. Sabine glanced at him with newfound respect. You've done this before. Extraction under hostile observation. Multiple times. The Covenant monitored human colonies closely. UNSC. Operations required infiltration and extraction without alerting patrol fleets. The boarding shuttle continued its approach. 20 meters. 15. 10. Now, Chief said. Sabine's hands flew across controls. The Nightshade's hyperdrive whined to life, and the comm system erupted with furious Imperial voices, jumping. All fighters engage. Turbolaser batteries target. The stars elongated, and they were gone. Behind them, in the space they'd just occupied, the Imperial patrol scrambled to respond. But they were already 8 light-years away, and the Nightshade's sensor-masked hyperspace trail would be nearly impossible to track. That was too close, Sabine said, her voice tight with adrenaline. They'll report this. Imperial intelligence will know someone's running toward wild space using evasion tactics. They'll increase patrols, tighten security. Expected, Chief said. The mission was compromised the moment I arrived in this galaxy. The Empire knows I exist. This just confirms I'm mobile and attempting to reach the anomaly location. Which means they'll be waiting for us. Correct. Sabine was quiet for a long moment. Then, you're going anyway. Even knowing it's a trap, even knowing Vader will be there with every resource the Empire can deploy. You're still going. The mission requires it, Chief said simply. I have 3 months before the anomaly collapses. Every day increases the probability of permanent stranding. Risk assessment indicates immediate action despite hostile preparation is preferable to delayed action with guaranteed failure. You Spartans really are built different, Sabine muttered. Most people would at least hesitate before flying directly into an Imperial killbox. Hesitation is inefficient. The tactical situation won't improve with time. Therefore, we proceed with maximum speed and adapt to complications as they arise. Sabine adjusted their course, plotting a new route that avoided known Imperial patrol sectors. We'll need to stop at Nar Shaddaa earlier than planned. After that little stunt, the Empire will be flagging vessels across this entire region. We need different identification codes, possibly a new ship entirely. Time impact. Maybe 6 hours delay. Worth it to avoid walking into another interdictor trap. Chief accepted the assessment. 6 hours was acceptable delay given the operational security requirements. The Nightshade continued through hyperspace, carrying them deeper into the galaxy's dangerous periphery, toward Imperial territory, toward the spatial anomaly that represented his only path home, and toward the inevitable confrontation with Vader. Chief spent the time studying Mandalorian combat data, integrating new tactical frameworks with his existing UNSC training. The information was valuable. This galaxy's warriors had developed sophisticated countermeasures for threats he'd never encountered, force users, energy shields, advanced droid combatants. He was learning, adapting, preparing. When they finally reached Nar Shaddaa, Chief would face a new environment, the infamous Smuggler's Moon, controlled by Hutt cartels, filled with criminals and fugitives, and theoretically beyond Imperial jurisdiction. It would be dangerous, chaotic, and unpredictable. But Chief had fought through worse. The flood-infested Installation 04, the Covenant's holy city of high charity, the Didact Scriptum. This was just another mission. Another objective. Another impossibility that he would make possible through skill, determination, and absolute focus on mission completion. The war was waiting for him. Humanity was waiting for him. He would find a way home. Nar Shaddaa emerged from hyperspace like a wound in space, a moon completely covered in layers of urban sprawl, neon lights bleeding through perpetual smog, and countless ships swarming around it like insects. Chief had seen industrial worlds before, orbital stations packed with humanity, but nothing quite like this. Every surface was built upon, every space utilized, creating a vertical city that descended miles into the moon's crust. The Smuggler's Moon, Sabine said, her voice carrying a mix of familiarity and distaste. Hutt-controlled territory, which means the Empire has limited official presence. But that doesn't make it safe, just differently dangerous. We're here for supplies, new identification transponder codes, and intelligence about Imperial movements in wild space. Stay close, don't draw attention, and don't trust anyone. The Nightshade descended through layers of air traffic, Sabine navigating with practiced ease through the chaotic approach vectors. Chief observed the organized chaos, no central traffic control that he could detect, just thousands of vessels following unwritten rules and avoiding collisions through apparent instinct. Eventually they settled into a docking bay in the mid-levels, the kind of facility that asked no questions as long as credits changed hands. Chief secured his weapons, MA-5D rifle mag locked to his back, blaster pistol at his hip, vibroblade secured in his boot sheath, and the Mandalorian vambrace integrated seamlessly with his armor. He looked like what he was, a heavily armed, extremely dangerous warrior. That's going to attract attention, Sabine noted as they descended the boarding ramp. This moon is full of bounty hunters, mercenaries, and people looking for profitable targets. Your armor alone is worth a fortune. Let them try, Chief said flatly. The docking bay opened into a marketplace, if it could be called that. Vendors hawked everything from weapon modifications to exotic narcotics. Species Chief didn't recognize conducted business in languages his translator struggled to process, and the air was thick with smoke, cooking smells, and industrial fumes. Security droids patrolled intermittently, but their attention seemed perfunctory at best. Sabine led Chief through the crowds with confident purpose, clearly familiar with this environment. They moved deeper into the station's interior, descending via turbolifts into lower levels where the lighting grew dimmer and the clientele more dangerous. First stop, Sabine said, is a contact who specializes in ship modifications and false registrations. We need the Nightshade to appear as a different vessel entirely, new transponder codes, altered sensor signature, the works. It'll cost, but it's necessary. They entered an establishment that was part workshop, part fortress. The proprietor was a Rhodian, green-skinned, multifaceted eyes, and hands that moved with mechanical precision across holographic interfaces. He looked up as they entered, his attention immediately fixing on Chief with predatory interest. Sabine Wren, the Rhodian said in heavily accented basic. You bring interesting company. That armor. I've never seen technology like that. Custom work. Military grade. Not for sale. Tico, Sabine said firmly. We need a rush job on transponder modification. Imperial grade false identity that'll pass customs scans. Tico's eyes never left Chief. That kind of work costs premium rates. 20,000 credits, and I'll need 6 hours. 10,000, 4 hours, Sabine counted. And you forget you ever saw us. 15,000, 5 hours, and I get to scan that armor's energy signature for my personal database. Deal. Chief stepped forward, and despite Tico being armed and surrounded by security systems, the Rhodian actually flinched. The armor doesn't get scanned. 12,000, 4 hours, and you complete the work without complications. Except, or we find another technician. Something in Chief's tone, or perhaps the absolute certainty of violence if provoked, convinced Tico. Deal. Bring your ship to Bay 7. I'll start work immediately. The transaction completed, they moved on to their second objective, intelligence gathering. Sabine led Chief to a cantina 3 levels down, where the clientele was even more unsavory. Bounty hunters compared contracts, spice dealers negotiated shipments, and information brokers sold secrets to the highest bidder. Sabine approached the bar, speaking quietly to the bartender, a massive, slug-like hut spawn. Credits changed hands, and the bartender gestured toward a private booth in the back. The information broker was human, surprisingly ordinary-looking except for the cybernetic implants covering one side of his skull. He looked up as Chief and Sabine approached, his expression calculating. Sabine, heard you'd picked up salvage that made Vader personally intervene. That's either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. His eyes moved to Chief. So this is the mysterious warrior. The one the Empire's hunting across half the galaxy. We need information, Sabine said, sliding into the booth. Chief remained standing, maintaining tactical awareness of the cantina's exits and potential threats. Imperial operations in wild space. Specifically, any recent activity around spatial anomalies or unexplained phenomena. The broker's expression became more interested. That kind of intelligence is expensive. The Empire's been very secretive about their wild space expansion. But I do have something. He activated a small holographic projector, displaying a star chart. 3 weeks ago, the Empire redirected an entire battle group to this sector, 6 star destroyers, supporting cruisers, and full fighter complement. Official designation, scientific research mission. But that's code for something they don't want public attention on. Chief studied the displayed sector. It matched Jace's calculations for the anomaly's location. What's the current Imperial presence? Substantial. At least 2 star destroyers maintaining permanent station, heavy fighter patrols, and this is interesting, they've deployed Inquisitors. Not just 1, 3 of them. That suggests they're expecting force-sensitive contacts or threats. Or, he looked at Chief meaningfully. They're expecting someone who can resist force manipulation. 3 Inquisitors plus whatever forces Vader could personally command. The tactical situation was worse than Chief had calculated. What's the intelligence cost? Sabine asked. 5,000 credits. Plus. The broker hesitated. I want to know what you're planning. Information like this, someone willing to pay premium rates for Imperial wild space data, and the Empire hunting you specifically. You're planning something dramatic. When it happens, I want advance notice so I can position appropriately. Information like that is worth fortunes if you're the only broker who sees it coming. Deal. Chief said before Sabine could respond. 5,000 credits for your data. When the operation concludes, you'll receive notification 12 hours before it becomes public knowledge. Credits transferred, and the broker provided detailed files, Imperial patrol schedules, known military installations, sensor grid coverage, and remarkably precise data about the anomaly's location. Good intelligence, worth the cost. As they left the cantina, Sabine said quietly, you just promised him advance warning about an operation that might get us killed. What makes you think we'll survive to send that notification? If we don't survive, the notification becomes irrelevant, Chief replied logically. If we do survive, honoring the agreement maintains useful contacts for future operations. Future operations. You're already planning to come back to this galaxy if you make it home. Is the work complete? Chief asked. Almost. Another hour, and your ship will have completely different identification. The Empire won't recognize it even if they scan directly. Tico's hands continued working while he talked. But you should know, bounty on you just increased. The Empire's offering 50,000 credits for information leading to your capture. That kind of money will bring every hunter on this moon looking for you. Expected, Chief said. The Empire was escalating, increasing incentives to locate him. Standard manhunt protocol. We need to leave as soon as the modifications are complete, Sabine said. This station's getting too hot. Chief agreed. They'd accomplished their objectives. Supplies acquired, ship modified, intelligence gathered. Remaining longer would only increase exposure to hostile contacts. Tico completed the work with 15 minutes to spare, and they departed Nar Shaddaa immediately. The Nightshade climbed through the chaotic traffic patterns, and Sabine plotted the next hyperspace jump, deeper into the outer rim, following the smuggler routes that would eventually lead them toward wild space. 2 more stops before we reach the anomaly location, Sabine said, her voice carrying the weariness of prolonged operation. We'll need to refuel, resupply ammunition for both our weapons, and gather any last-minute intelligence about Imperial positions. After that, she paused. After that, we're committed. No turning back, no alternative extraction. We go in, you access the anomaly, and we hope we're fast enough to get out before the Empire obliterates us. Acceptable risk profile, Chief said. For you, maybe. I'm just a Mandalorian pilot with delusions of adequacy, flying into a battle against overwhelming Imperial forces alongside a dimensional refugee who fights like he's personally insulted by the concept of losing. Chief detected something in her tone, not fear exactly, but acknowledgement of mortality. You can withdraw from the operation. Deliver me to the sector and extract immediately. You've fulfilled your salvage claim obligations. Sabine laughed, a sharp sound without much humor. And miss seeing how this ends. No chance. Besides, someone needs to document this for Mandalorian records. The time a Spartan from another universe fought Darth Vader for the right to go home. That's the kind of story that becomes legend. Legends are irrelevant. Mission success is the only metric that matters. That's where you're wrong, Chief. Legends matter because they inspire people. They show that impossible things can be accomplished, that tyranny can be resisted, that one person making the right choices can change everything. Sabine adjusted their hyperspace course. The rebellion needs legends right now. They're fighting a losing war against overwhelming odds. Every story of someone standing against the Empire, every demonstration that Vader can be challenged and survived, it matters. Chief processed this perspective. In the UNSC, individual glory was subordinate to mission success and unit cohesion. Spartans operated in the shadows, their accomplishments often classified, their sacrifices unknown to the civilians they protected. But perhaps in this galaxy, where the rebellion fought as much for hope as for territory, visible resistance had strategic value beyond immediate tactical gains. If we succeed, Chief said carefully, the Empire will increase security across their holdings. The response to successful resistance is typically escalated suppression. True, but they'll also demonstrate that they can be beaten. That their enforcers aren't invincible. That fear isn't absolute. Sabine's voice carried conviction. Sometimes the strategic value isn't in the territory you capture or the enemies you destroy. Sometimes it's in proving that resistance is possible at all. The Nightshade traveled through hyperspace, carrying them toward their ultimate objective. Chief continued his preparation, studying Imperial tactical doctrine from the intelligence files, reviewing Mandalorian combat techniques, running equipment diagnostics, and maintaining peak physical readiness. His MA-5D had 184 rounds remaining. His blaster rifle had 58% charge. His armor's shields were at full capacity. The Mandalorian vambrace added multiple tactical options. He was as prepared as circumstances allowed. But the mission variables remained challenging. 3 Inquisitors with Force abilities similar to Vader's, at least 2 Star Destroyers with full fighter complements, heavily fortified Imperial positions, and the Dark Lord himself likely commanding the operation personally. Chief had faced worse odds. Installation 04 had been defended by the entire Covenant fleet. High Charity had been infested with the Flood. The Didact had possessed technology millions of years advanced beyond human capability. He'd survived through skill, adaptation, and absolute refusal to accept failure as an outcome. This mission would be no different. 10 days after leaving Nar Shaddaa, they reached the final waypoint before Wildspace, a remote refueling station operated by independent traders. Sabine handled the resupply negotiations while Chief maintained security, his presence discouraging the kind of opportunistic violence that characterized frontier stations. The station's operator, an elderly human with cybernetic legs, provided their last piece of intelligence. Imperial patrols in wild space have tripled in the last week. They're looking for something specific, running sensor sweeps on every ship that enters the sector. Whatever you're planning, the Empire knows someone's coming. Understood, Chief said. Expected. Vader would have anticipated his attempt to reach the anomaly. The Dark Lord wasn't stupid, he'd recognized Chief's capabilities, understood the threat, and prepared accordingly. But preparation worked both ways. Chief had learned about this galaxy's weapons, tactics, and threats. He understood Force abilities and their limitations. He'd studied Imperial doctrine and identified exploitable weaknesses. He had Mandalorian weapons, knowledge of smuggler routes, and the advantage of technological systems the Empire couldn't fully understand. The final hyperspace jump carried them into wild space, uncharted regions where stars grew sparse and Imperial control was theoretical at best. The anomaly location appeared on their senses as a region of distorted space-time, exactly matching Jace's calculations. And surrounding it, exactly as expected, was an Imperial fleet. 2 Star Destroyers flanked the anomaly, with a third vessel, some kind of specialized science ship, positioned directly at the spatial rift. TIE fighter patrols created a defensive sphere, and sensor readings indicated multiple probe droids monitoring approaches from every vector. "That's a lot of firepower," Sabine said quietly. "More than I expected. They're not just guarding the anomaly, they're studying it. That science ship is probably analyzing the spatial distortion, maybe trying to understand how it works or how to replicate it." Chief studied the tactical display. The Imperial presence was substantial, but not insurmountable. The key was the science vessel. If the Empire understood how the slipspace-hyperspace intersection functioned, they might be able to close it permanently or use it for their own purposes. "We need to access the anomaly and extract before they can respond," Chief said. "Direct approach will trigger immediate engagement. We need a vector that exploits their sensor coverage gaps." There, Sabine highlighted a specific approach angle on the display. "If we come in from below their patrol sphere, using the debris field from an old battle to mask our approach, we might get within 5,000 kilometers before they detect us. After that," she shrugged, "we run at full speed and hope your armor's tough enough to survive whatever they throw at us." "It is," Chief confirmed. "Initiate approach." The Nightshade maneuvered carefully, using minimal thrust to avoid detection. They slipped past the outer patrol radius, threaded through a debris field that sparkled with frozen volatiles, and approached the anomaly from an angle the Imperial sensor grid wasn't optimized to monitor. 3,000 kilometers, 2,000, 1,000, then alarms shrieked across the Nightshade's systems. They'd been detected. All TIE fighters, intercept unknown contact. The Imperial communications burst across all frequencies. Science vessel, withdraw to minimum safe distance. Lord Vader to combat position. And there, emerging from the lead Star Destroyer, was a distinctive ship, a modified TIE fighter with unusual wings and a profile Chief immediately recognized from intelligence briefs. Vader's personal fighter. The Dark Lord was here, exactly as expected. The final engagement was about to begin. Offline throughout his journey in this galaxy, but her absence reminded him why this mattered. He needed to get home. Needed to rejoin the war. Needed to continue protecting humanity from extinction. The anomaly's center approached, a point of absolute nothingness that simultaneously contained everything. Chief's training, his augmentations, his technology, none of it had prepared him for this. He was operating on pure determination, refusing to allow physics or impossibility to stop him from completing his mission. He reached into the nothingness. And fell through. Reality reassembled itself in stages. First, the sensation of having a body again, of occupying three-dimensional space instead of existing across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Then sight, stars, familiar constellations, space that followed comprehensible physics. Chief's HUD flickered back online, systems rebooting and running diagnostics. Armor integrity, 67% and holding. Shields, offline, regeneration cycle initiated. Location, unknown, calculating. Weight, not unknown. The star patterns matched UNSC navigation databases. He was in human-controlled space, outer colonies region, approximately 40 light-years from reach. He'd made it, through impossible circumstances, across dimensional barriers, fighting through an entire galaxy's military forces, he'd successfully returned to his own universe. Chief activated his armor's emergency beacon, broadcasting on UNSC frequencies. Within minutes, A response came through UNSC Infinity, requesting identification and status. Master Chief Petty Officer John 117, Chief transmitted. Reporting successful return from emergency displacement. Requesting immediate extraction and debriefing. The response was immediate. Chief, this is Captain Lasky. Stand by for slipspace jump to your coordinates. It's good to hear your voice. We thought you were lost. Chief allowed himself a moment, just one moment, of satisfaction. Mission accomplished. Return successful. He was home. But even as the Infinity emerged from slipspace, its massive bulk a welcome sight, Chief's tactical mind was already processing the experience. He'd learned about an entire galaxy, its technology and warfare, its conflicts and its champions. He'd encountered physics-defying abilities and survived engagement with their most dangerous practitioners. And somewhere, in that other galaxy, Vader was still hunting. The Empire still controlled billions. The rebellion still fought against impossible odds. Not his fight, not his mission. His duty was to humanity, to the UNSC, to the war against the Covenant. But Chief understood something fundamental now. The universe was larger than he'd imagined, conflicts existed beyond humanity's struggles, and sometimes the line between duty and choice was less clear than training suggested. The Infinity's hangar bay opened, and Chief maneuvered using his armor's remaining thruster fuel to enter. As he touched down on the deck, he was immediately surrounded by UNSC personnel, medical teams, technical specialists, command staff all converging. Chief, Roland's avatar appeared beside him, the Infinity's AI, professional and efficient. We need full mission debriefing immediately. Whatever happened to you? The energy signatures we're detecting from your armor are completely unprecedented. Where were you? Chief removed his helmet, meeting the eyes of the assembled personnel. People who knew him, who'd served alongside him, who understood what Spartans represented. Somewhere else, Chief said simply. Somewhere that taught me that humanity's fight isn't the only war worth winning. But it's the one I'm committed to. Captain Lasky approached, his expression showing relief and professional curiosity in equal measure. We've got a lot to discuss. Sabine didn't argue further. She vectored the nightshade toward the anomaly, pushing the engines beyond rated capacity. The ship screamed through the engagement zone, taking hits that dropped shields to 40%, then 28%, then 12%. Vader's fighter pursued, his shots coming closer with each burst. The Dark Lord was adapting to Sabine's piloting patterns, predicting her evasions, closing the tactical window. 30 meters. Sabine called out, decompressing boarding ramp. Chief moved to the ramp as it lowered, atmosphere venting into vacuum in a violent rush. Through his helmet's viewport, he could see the anomaly clearly now, a wound in space perhaps 20 meters across, pulsing with energies that made his HUD glitch and stutter. The nightshade swept past the anomaly at maximum velocity, and Chief jumped. For a moment, he hung in vacuum, his armor's maneuvering thrusters automatically compensating for momentum. Imperial weapons fire converged on his position, dozens of TIE fighters adjusting aim, capital ship turbolasers tracking his trajectory. Chief fired his thrusters, angling toward the anomaly. Blaster fire scored his shields, dropping them rapidly, 54%, 38%, 19%. A turbolaser blast from one of the Star Destroyers caught him directly, and his shields collapsed completely. The beam's edge clipped his left shoulder pauldron, superheating the armor and sending pain lancing through augmented nerves. But Chief had trained to fight through pain, to operate at peak efficiency even when injured. He maintained his trajectory, meters from the anomaly now, close enough to feel the impossible forces warping space around it. Vader's fighter appeared directly in his path. The Dark Lord's TIE fighter rotated, weapons tracking Chief's position. But Vader didn't fire. Instead, Chief felt something he'd never experienced before, a presence, vast and terrible, pressing against his mind. Not communication, not thought, but pure will attempting to dominate his consciousness. The Force. Vader was trying to use the Force to stop him, to hold him frozen in space while Imperial forces closed in. Chief's augmented physiology and decades of psychological conditioning resisted. Spartans were trained to operate under extreme mental stress, to maintain focus when every instinct screamed retreat. Whatever the force was, it required a consciousness susceptible to its influence. And Chief's mind had been hardened through trials that would break normal humans. He continued his trajectory, fighting through the psychic pressure like moving through deep water. Vader's presence intensified, surprise registering even through the alien mental contact. The Dark Lord hadn't expected resistance. Chief reached the anomaly's edge, and reality fractured around him. The sensation was indescribable, existing in multiple places simultaneously, experiencing time nonlinearly, feeling his molecular structure simultaneously pulled apart and held together by his armor's integrity fields. His HUD went completely offline, systems unable to process the impossible physics. Through the chaos, Chief saw Vader's fighter pull back, unable or unwilling to follow into the spatial distortion. The Dark Lord's presence withdrew from his mind, and Chief felt a final impression of grudging respect mixed with frustrated determination. They would meet again. Vader would not stop pursuing him. But for now, Chief was beyond the Dark Lord's reach. The anomaly's forces intensified, dragging Chief deeper into the distortion. He tumbled through impossible geometries, through colors that had no names, through spaces where physics themselves seemed negotiable. His armor's structure groaned under stress, plates flexing in ways they weren't designed to accommodate. He thought of Cortana, her voice in his mind during countless missions, her calculations guiding him through impossible situations. She wasn't here, damaged in the initial transition. The Nightshade's proximity alarms screamed as TIE fighters swarmed toward them, 12 contacts rapidly multiplying to 24 as reinforcements launched from both Star Destroyers. Sabine's hands flew across controls, the ship banking hard as green turbolaser fire from the capital ships began tracking their position. Shields at maximum, Sabine called out. This is going to get rough. Chief was already moving to the ship's dorsal gun turret, a position he'd familiarized himself with during the journey. The targeting interface was different from UNSC systems, but the fundamental principles were identical: lead the target, compensate for relative velocity, fire when solution was optimal. The first wave of TIE fighters opened fire, the distinctive twin-linked blasters sending streams of green energy toward the Nightshade. Sabine jinked and rolled, her piloting skills buying precious seconds while Chief acquired his first target. The Mandalorian targeting computer painted firing solutions, and Chief's augmented reflexes translated them into action. He fired. The turret's heavy blaster cannon sent a concentrated burst into a TIE fighter's cockpit sphere. The Imperial craft exploded in a brief fireball that was immediately snuffed by vacuum. Nice shot. Sabine's voice carried tension but not panic. 18 more to go, plus whatever Vader's planning. Chief tracked, fired, adjusted. A second TIE fighter disintegrated. A third spun away trailing atmosphere, its pilot ejecting in an emergency escape pod. Chief's combat doctrine prioritized efficiency over brutality: destroy the threat, move to the next target, maintain constant pressure. But the Imperial fighters were adapting, spreading their formation to prevent easy targeting, coordinating their attack runs to come from multiple vectors simultaneously. Professional tactics from competent pilots. The Nightshade shuddered as blaster fire overwhelmed a shield section. Shields down to 60%. Sabine announced, "We need to reach the anomaly before they chew us apart." Through the gun turret's viewport, Chief could see the spatial distortion, a region of space that seemed to twist reality itself, colors that shouldn't exist bleeding through into normal space-time. It was beautiful and terrible, and his armor's senses screamed warnings about the exotic radiation emanating from it. That was his way home. That impossible tear in reality, bridging his universe and this one. Vader's personal fighter cut through the engagement zone like a blade, moving with precision that transcended the other TIE pilot's capabilities. The Dark Lord wasn't just piloting, he was using the Force to predict trajectories, to place his fighter exactly where it needed to be. Vader fired, and the shots weren't random suppression. They were targeted with surgical precision at the Nightshade's engine assemblies. Sabine rolled desperately, the shots missing by meters. He's not trying to destroy us, Sabine realized. He wants to disable the ship, force us to stop. He wants you alive. Chief understood the tactical implication. Vader had recognized that killing Chief would destroy any chance of understanding his technology or his origin. The Dark Lord wanted to capture him, interrogate him, extract every piece of information about UNSC capabilities and how he'd crossed dimensions. That gave Chief a narrow operational window. Get me close to the anomaly, Chief ordered. Within 50 meters. Then extract immediately at maximum acceleration. You're planning to jump, Sabine said, and her voice carried both horror and admiration. You're going to either into the spatial rift. Correct. The Nightshade can't survive prolonged engagement. But my armor is designed for vacuum operations and extreme environmental conditions. I can reach the anomaly independently. That's insane. You'll be exposed to hostile fire, radiation, spatial distortion. Mission parameters require it. Proceed. Chief, the Covenant situation has evolved while you were gone. Alliances are shifting, new threats are emerging. We need you back in the fight. Understood, Chief said, because that was what Spartans did. They fought. They protected. They completed impossible missions because someone had to. But as he moved through the Infinity's corridors toward debriefing, Chief thought about a Mandalorian pilot who'd risked everything to help a stranger, about a warrior culture that valued honor over politics, about a rebellion fighting for freedom against overwhelming tyranny. Different galaxy, different war, different people, but the principles remained universal: courage in the face of impossible odds, sacrifice for ideals worth preserving, and the fundamental recognition that some things, freedom, dignity, survival, were worth fighting for regardless of the cost. Chief had returned home, but he'd left something behind in that other galaxy, not regret exactly, but acknowledgement. Acknowledgement that his actions there had mattered, that his choices had influenced lives beyond his own, that perhaps individual warriors could make differences that transcended immediate tactical objectives. The debriefing would take hours. The technical analysis of what happened would take days. The strategic implications of dimensional transit technology would be studied for months. But right now, in this moment, Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 was exactly where he needed to be, home, among his people, preparing to continue the fight that had defined his entire existence. The war was waiting, and Spartans never quit. 3 months after his return, Chief stood in the Infinity's observation deck, staring out at the stars. The debriefings were complete, the mission reports filed, and his armor had been fully repaired and upgraded with insights gleaned from Mandalorian technology integration. Oni had spent weeks analyzing every byte of data his armor had recorded, studying the physics of dimensional transit, and cataloging everything he'd learned about that other galaxy. The war against the Covenant continued. Chief had participated in 17 operations since his return: orbital insertions, facility sabotage, high-value target eliminations. Standard Spartan deployments. He'd performed at his usual level of excellence, mission success rates maintaining their characteristic percentages. But something had changed, even if Chief couldn't articulate exactly what. Captain Lasky found him there, holding a data pad with an expression that suggested complicated news. Chief, we've detected something unusual. A spatial anomaly in Sector 774, same energy signature as the one that displaced you 3 months ago. Chief turned, his attention immediately focusing. Another rift, possibly. It's unstable, fluctuating wildly. Our science teams estimate it'll collapse within 48 hours. Lasky paused, but before it destabilizes completely, we're detecting a transmission coming through the rift. It's not any UNSC protocol, but your armor's translation algorithms recognize it. Chief's tactical instinct activated. Play it. The transmission was audio only, heavily distorted by dimensional interference, but the voice was unmistakable. Sabine's voice, modulated through her helmet speakers. Don't know if this will reach you, Chief, but I'm transmitting on the frequencies your armor was broadcasting when you entered the anomaly. The Empire closed their research station after you escaped. Vader withdrew to pursue other threats. The rebellion, well, we're still fighting. Still losing more than we win. But there's something you should know. Static interrupted, then her voice returned. The story of what you did here. Fighting through an Imperial blockade, surviving Vader's direct engagement, successfully transients a spatial anomaly against impossible odds. It's spreading. Rebels tell it in safe houses. Mandalorian clans include it in their warrior chronicles. Even Imperial troops whisper about the armored soldier who couldn't be stopped. You became exactly what I said, a legend. Proof that the Empire can be resisted, that their enforcers aren't invincible, that one person making the right choices can matter. Another pause, longer this time. I don't know if legends mean anything to you, Chief. I know you focus on missions and objectives and tactical outcomes. But here, in this galaxy, hope is a resource as valuable as any weapon. And you gave us that, even if you didn't intend to. So, thank you, for being the warrior you are. For showing us what's possible. For reminding us why we fight. The transmission ended with a final burst of static as the rift's instability severed the connection. Lasky studied Chief's expression, or rather, tried to. Spartans weren't known for broadcasting emotions. The anomaly will collapse soon. If you wanted to, I mean, if there was something over their worth. No, Chief said firmly. But something in his voice wasn't quite as absolute as usual. My duty is here. Humanity needs every Spartan asset available. I can't abandon the mission for. He paused, searching for the right word. For something that's already completed. Fair enough. Lasky didn't push, but he left the observation deck slowly, as if giving Chief space to reconsider. Alone again, Chief accessed his armor's memory banks, reviewing the data from his time in that other galaxy. Combat footage from Balmorra, tactical analysis from the Mandalorian challenges, intelligence files about the rebellion's struggle against imperial tyranny. Different war, different stakes, not his responsibility. Except Sabine was right, legends mattered. Not for the individuals who created them, but for the people who needed to believe that resistance was possible. Chief had spent his entire career operating in shadows, his accomplishments classified, his sacrifices unknown to the civilians he protected. But in that other galaxy, his actions had been visible, public, transformative in ways that pure tactical success could never achieve. The UNSC had other Spartan eyes. Fewer than Chief wanted, too many lost to the war, but still operational. Blue Team could function without him temporarily. Commander Palmer's Spartan IVs were increasingly capable. The war would continue regardless of one soldier's presence. And in that other galaxy, a rebellion fought without hope, without resources, without any indication that their sacrifice mattered. Chief made his decision with the same decisive certainty he brought to every mission. This was the right course of action, therefore he would execute it. He moved through the Infinity's corridors to the armory, where his backup equipment was stored. A Pelican dropship with full fuel load. Additional ammunition for weapons effective in that galaxy. Medical supplies. Everything needed for extended independent operation. Roland's avatar materialized as Chief began loading equipment. Chief, I'm detecting unusual activity in your equipment requisition. Are you planning an unauthorized departure? Temporary reassignment, Chief said. Not technically accurate, but close enough. Captain Lasky has the relevant details. Captain Lasky just received a message from you indicating you're pursuing a personal reconnaissance mission and will return within standard operational timeframes. Roland's tone carried distinct suspicion. That message was sent approximately 30 seconds ago using your authentication codes. I'm quite certain you didn't send it. Accurate assessment, Chief confirmed, continuing his equipment loading. Roland was silent for a moment. By AI standards, an eternity of processing. I see, you're going back through the anomaly. Chief, that's extraordinarily dangerous. We don't understand the physics involved. Your survival during the first transit was statistical impossibility. A second attempt might kill you. Risk assessment acknowledged. Mission proceeds. May I ask why? What tactical objective requires this action? Chief paused in his preparations, considering how to articulate something he barely understood himself. In war, tactical victories matter. But strategic morale matters more. That galaxy's rebellion is losing not because they lack courage, but because they lack proof that resistance achieves anything. I can't win their war for them. But I can demonstrate that the Empire's control isn't absolute. That their most powerful enforcer can be challenged and survived. That matters. That's... Roland paused. That's remarkably philosophical for you, Chief. Almost like you learned something over there beyond combat tactics. Perhaps, Chief acknowledged. Will you report this departure? I should. Protocol requires. Roland stopped. But protocol also recognizes that Spartans operate with significant autonomy in pursuit of mission objectives. If you believe this serves humanity's strategic interests, who am I to question Spartan tactical judgment? I'll delay filing the departure report for 72 hours. That should give you enough time to either succeed or, well, let's focus on success. Appreciated. Chief completed his loading and piloted the Pelican toward the spatial anomaly. It hung in space like a wound, smaller than the one he'd emerged from months ago, visibly unstable, pulsing with energies that made his senses scream warnings. Every TIE fighter in the engagement zone immediately retargeted toward Chief's position. Good. That was exactly what he'd intended. Chief piloted through the swarm of Imperial fighters with skills honed through decades of combat operations. The Pelican was tougher than the Nightshade, more heavily armored, built to survive hostile insertions. But it was also less maneuverable, less suited for dogfighting. He didn't need to win. He just needed to survive long enough for the rebels to escape. Blaster fire hammered his shields. The Pelican shuddered under impacts. But Chief maintained his position, deliberately drawing Imperial attention, creating the tactical window the rebels needed. Unknown contact, Chief. The rebels are jumping to hyperspace, a voice transmitted. Sabine's voice, unmistakable even through combat interference. You suicidal idiot, what are you doing here? Completing the mission, Chief replied simply. The rebel fleet vanished into hyperspace, successful extraction achieved. Chief immediately vectored away from the Imperial formation, plotting his own escape route. The Pelican's hyperdrive spun up. Oni had ensured it was compatible with local space-time, and Chief prepared to jump. A familiar presence pressed against his mind. Vader was here, somewhere in that Imperial fleet, recognizing Chief's return. The Dark Lord's psychic contact carried something beyond anger or determination. Something almost like anticipation. As if Vader had been waiting for this, had known Chief would return, had recognized that warriors like them inevitably found each other across impossible distances. We will finish this, the impression suggested. Not words, but intent translated through the Force. Chief sent back his own response, not through any psychic ability, but through pure determined certainty that Vader would somehow understand, agreed. But not today. The Pelican jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Imperial fleet behind. Chief set course for coordinates Sabine had transmitted during that final message, a rebel rendezvous point, hidden in the deep reaches of space where the Empire's control was theoretical at best. He'd returned to this galaxy not because it was his war, not because tactical necessity demanded it, but because sometimes the right choice transcended duty. Because legends mattered, because proving that resistance was possible had strategic value beyond immediate tactical outcomes. The Pelican traveled through hyperspace, carrying Chief toward uncertain future and definite danger. But also toward purpose that felt, for the first time in his career, chosen rather than assigned. He was still a Spartan. Still committed to protecting humanity, completing impossible missions, fighting wars that needed winning. But he'd learned something in this galaxy, duty and choice didn't have to be opposites. Sometimes the missions that mattered most were the ones you selected yourself. The war was waiting, both in his home universe and in this one. And Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 had never been one to quit. He plotted an intercept course, accelerating to maximum velocity. The anomaly was collapsing, its dimensional integrity failing. He had perhaps 10 minutes before it closed permanently. The Pelican crossed the threshold, and reality fractured once again. The same impossible sensation, existing across multiple dimensions, experiencing nonlinear time, feeling his molecular structure simultaneously torn apart and held together. But this time Chief knew what to expect, could brace himself mentally for the transition. The journey felt both instantaneous and eternal. Then, abruptly, he was through. Space resolved into familiar unfamiliarity, the Star Wars galaxy, with its distinctively different stellar patterns. His senses immediately detected activity nearby, a rebel fleet, scattered and damaged, fleeing from an Imperial pursuit force. Chief's tactical assessment was immediate. The rebels were outgunned, their shields failing, their formation breaking apart under concentrated Imperial fire. 3 Star Destroyers were methodically destroying the smaller rebel vessels, TIE fighters swarming through defensive positions. It was a massacre in progress. Chief activated the Pelican's communications array, broadcasting on frequencies he'd learned during his previous time here. Rebel Forces, this is Master Chief Petty Officer John 117. Transmitting tactical analysis and recommended extraction vectors. Execute immediately. The response came after a startled pause. A female voice, professional despite clear stress. Unknown contact, this is Rebel Command Vessel Redemption. We're receiving your tactical data. How do you, wait. You're broadcasting in languages we don't recognize, but our translators are picking up the designation. Master Chief. The warrior from the legends. The one who fought Vader. Correct. Execute recommended extraction. I'm providing cover. Chief didn't wait for acknowledgement. He vectored the Pelican directly toward the nearest Star Destroyer, his weapons systems already calculating firing solutions. The Pelican wasn't designed for capital ship engagement, it was a dropship, meant for atmospheric insertion and personnel transport. But it had weapons, and Chief had a Spartan's absolute determination to complete impossible missions. He fired the Pelican's missiles at the Star Destroyer's bridge tower, not expecting to destroy it but to create distraction, to make the Imperial commander hesitate, to buy the rebels precious seconds for escape. The missiles impacted against shields, causing minimal damage but maximum attention. The legend spread across both galaxies like wildfire through jump-capable civilizations. In the Star Wars universe, rebel cells from the core worlds to the Outer Rim told stories about the Spartan, the armored warrior from beyond the stars who challenged Vader twice and survived both encounters. They spoke of how he'd turned the tide of the Battle of Kelrabi Station, how his tactical brilliance had saved 3 rebel fleets from annihilation, how he'd taught their commandos techniques that made stormtroopers hesitate before engaging. The Empire's response was predictable: increased patrols, tighter security, bounties that reached astronomical figures. But they couldn't erase the damage Chief had done to their aura of invincibility. Every time a rebel succeeded where failure seemed certain, they invoked the Spartan's example. Every time Imperial forces faced unexpectedly fierce resistance, commanders wondered if the Dimensional Warrior had trained those troops. Vader hunted him obsessively, their encounters becoming the stuff of legend themselves, neither able to decisively defeat the other, both recognizing in their opponent a kindred spirit of absolute dedication to purpose. Their battles were brutal, professional, and strangely respectful. Warriors who understood what it meant to sacrifice everything for duty. Sabine became Chief's liaison to the rebellion, coordinating his operations, translating between UNSC tactical doctrine and rebel guerrilla methodology. The Mandalorian clans declared him an honorary clan member, the first outsider in 3,000 years to receive such recognition. His armor, blending MJOLNIR technology with Mandalorian Beskar plating and rebel modifications, became a symbol recognized across the galaxy. But Chief never forgot his primary duty. He returned regularly to his home universe, participating in critical UNSC operations, ensuring humanity's survival against the Covenant. The UNSC leadership eventually acknowledged his dual commitment, reluctantly, but with recognition that his actions in the other galaxy provided strategic benefits they couldn't quantify but couldn't deny. 2 wars, 2 galaxies, 1 warrior operating across impossible distances, proving that heroism transcended dimensional boundaries. Years later, when the Galactic Civil War finally turned in the rebellion's favor, when the Empire's grip began to weaken and freedom seemed possible, historians would analyze what made the difference. They'd cite military victories, political alliances, technological advantages. But the soldiers who'd fought those battles knew better. They knew that morale mattered, that hope was a weapon as powerful as any blaster, that one person demonstrating courage could inspire thousands to similar bravery. Master Chief hadn't won the war for them, but he'd shown them it could be won. And sometimes, that was the most important contribution of all. In both galaxies, the legend persisted, the Spartan from beyond the stars, the warrior who couldn't be stopped, the soldier who'd proven that duty, honor, and courage were universal principles that transcended dimensional barriers. The Force might bind the Star Wars galaxy together, but Chief had demonstrated something equally powerful, that choice, determination, and sacrifice connected all beings who fought for causes worth preserving. He remained what he'd always been, a soldier, a protector, a warrior forged for impossible missions. But now he was also something more, proof that one person, making the right choices at critical moments, could change the course of history across multiple realities. The wars continued, as wars always do. But they were fought by people who believed victory was possible, because they'd seen it achieved against impossible odds. And somewhere, traveling between universes, completing missions in whichever galaxy needed him most, Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 continued his eternal purpose, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, fighting wars that needed winning, and proving that hope, that most powerful of all weapons, was never truly lost as long as someone refused to surrender.